Good evening. Welcome to our February 22nd, 2021 regular Matthews Town Board of Commissioners meeting. I'd like to start, as always, with some introductions. Tonight we have Commissioner Jeff Miller, Commissioner Dave Bland, Commissioner Larry Whitley, Town Attorney Charlie Buckley, our Town Manager Hazen Blodgett, Commissioner Ken McCool, Commissioner John Urban, Assistant Town Manager Becky Hawk, Town Clerk Lori Canapino, Mayor Pro Tem Renee Garner, our Communications Coordinator Maureen Keith, and our Planning Director Jay Camp. That's all the folks that I can see on the screen. So again, I'm Mayor John Higdon. Welcome. I'd like to read some familiar verbiage now. Due to the governor's COVID-19 orders, this meeting of the Matthews Board of Commissioners will be conducted remotely using the Zoom virtual meeting platform. The town of Matthews is committed to transparency and robust public participation during these challenging times. Once again, I will remind everyone that the mayor and commissioners will vote on each item by roll call vote, meaning each member will be polled individually to state their vote for the record, and they will also raise their hand or otherwise indicate their vote. So that being said, we'll move on to the invocation moment of reflection with Commissioner and Pastor Larry Whitley.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Commissioners and all of those who are watching. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to speak on reflection tonight. What is Black History Month and why do we celebrate it? Black History Month originally started as a National Negro History Week in 1926. It was founded by a Harvard-trained historian, Carter G. Woodson, and predominant minister, Jesse E. Moreland. It fell on the second week of February and coincided with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. This event inspired schools, communities nationwide, and to organize celebration, establish historic clubs, and host performances for educated lecturers. As the decades went on, mayors of cities all across the country issued yearly proclamation recognizing Negro History Week. By the 1960s, in part of the civil rights movement, Negro History Week evolved into Black History Month on several college campuses. In 1976, President Gerald R. Ford officially expanded Negro History Week into Black History Month, starting the United States' need to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishment of Black Americans in events of areas endeavored throughout our history. Since then, every American president has dedicated February as Black History Month, endowing the specific theme this year of being the Black family, representing identity and diversity. Black History Month is celebrated each year as a way of recognizing and the contributions and achievement of Black America, as well as the present opportunity of people to learn more about the effect of racism and how the challenge and neglect stereotype that plagues the Black community today. Now, would you join me for a moment of silence as we now give a silent moment of recognition of the over 500,000 lives lost from COVID-19. Thank you so much, Mayor and Town.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitley, for reminding us of Black History Month. Very important, and we're happy to celebrate it here in Matthews. And also to remember so many that have died from the pandemic. I read this morning that now more Americans have died from the pandemic than both of our world wars combined. So phenomenal loss, and hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Please join me, if you will, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I now have the great honor and pleasure of making a proclamation in recognition of Engineers Week. I think most of you know that I'm an engineer, as was my predecessor. Mayor Paul Bailey is also an engineer. We've had a few engineers volunteer for the town, but tonight we really want to recognize our town employees. And I'm going to present this to Susan Habina Woolard, our town engineer tonight. Whereas engineers use their scientific and technical knowledge and skills in creative and innovative ways to fulfill society's needs, and whereas engineers face the major technological challenges of our time, from rebuilding towns devastated by natural disaster, cleaning up the environment, and assuring safe, clean, and efficient sources of energy, to designing information systems that will speed our country into the future. And whereas engineers are encouraging our young math and science students to realize the practical power of their knowledge, and whereas we will look more than ever to engineers and their knowledge and skills to meet the challenges of the 21st century, now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor John F. Higdon, do hereby proclaim February 21st through the 27th, 2021 as Engineers Week in the town of Matthews. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Matthews to be affixed this 22nd day of February 2021. Susan, congratulations. Would you like to give a speech?
Thank you, Mayor. No speech needed, but happy Engineers Week, everyone. I hope you enjoy everything that engineers provide to you, such as water, buildings, electricity, transportation systems, your computers. I'd also like to recognize CJ O'Neill, Public Works Director, is also a PE. And we have an engineering technician, Eric Guir, who has just been a really great addition to the team, as well as we have several engineers that live in the town of Matthews, not just with the mayor, but other ones as well. So recognizing all of our residents who are engineers as well. Thank you very much for that proclamation.
Absolutely. You know, I was particularly proud of engineers this week as we saw all the photographs coming back from Mars. What an incredible accomplishment that was. And all the scientific community that participated in that, not just engineers, everybody. What an accomplishment. Great accomplishment for the world. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5, receive the Matthews Playhouse update from Artistic Director and our good friend June Bayless. Jay, you're going to handle the presentation.
All right, June, can you hear us? You're up.
I am. I can't see myself, but I guess you can hear me. Is that right?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I'm so glad to see everyone. I think the last time I saw most of you was a year ago at Mamma Mia, and just delighted to see people. We are so secluded these days. We wanted to update you on what Matthews Playhouse is planning for the future, remind you of what we've been doing for the last 11 months, where we have been trying to stay visible and vital to the public and to our patrons. Over the last 11 months, we've provided 10 virtual events, and we're right now in the process of creating 10 more. We have monetized some of the activities with a minimal charge, and we've shared our donations with numerous nonprofits in the region. I think most of you are aware of that. While we've been unable to perform in person, we have continued to stay vital and stay in front of folks. We were able to do summer camp last summer, and we are doing 10 weeks of fall class and 10 weeks of winter classes, as well as a master class we had back in the fall taught by 2 Broadway actors who were home here in the Matthews region due to COVID. Every event we've had we've felt has been successful and has been COVID-free. We've been safe. We're looking forward to another summer of summer camp. with all the protocols in place. We've been searching over the last months for a way to provide a safe, family-friendly performance that will entice the public back to the theater when we are able to open the doors. So we have 3 things coming up we wanted to share with you and make you aware of, and then ask you, I guess, permission on the 3rd item. The first thing we've started is our Playwrights Festival. This is with the African American Playwrights Group of Charlotte, and it is for BIPOC writers. We have received to date 18 plays. I've read all 18 of them, and we're having a terrible time choosing the 4 that we would like to do as a play reading festival in April in the community center. These play readings will be streamed, as well as a minimal audience, if it's allowed at that time, if the governor allows us to have people inside socially distanced. So we'll perform them in the form of a reading, and then after the 4 are performed, 1 will be selected to be performed in the fall as part of our main stage. Again, it will be in September, and if we are still limited to what we can do inside, we have plans to perform it outside if that's a viable and a possible thing to be allowed by the town. It will be a full production with sets and lights and costumes, the whole 9 yards. Once we find that once you put something on your calendar, it stays on your calendar. In other words, we have wanted to do something like this with this Black Playwrights group for years, and we just never had the time. We were running so fast. So we feel that once we get this on the boards next year and the next and the next, it'll be a part of our regular season. The next thing that we're very excited about, and that goes on down to the bottom of the page, we would like to present the musical Godspell in Stumptown Park in June, 2 weekends in June. That's another dream we've had for years, is to put a full production out there in the park. I'd like to eventually do Shakespeare, but I don't think that would be too good to start with. So we're going with the musical Godspell. It is based on the book of Matthew, loosely based, so to speak. It's full of improv and comedy and vaudevillian moments. It's got a very small cast, and it has a small band, which we would also put up on the stage with the actors, cast of 10. We would use masks and social distancing, depending on what the governor says at that point in time. We'll follow all of the rules. We will continue to change and grow as things happen. We've worked with Park and Rec. We've worked with Leanne about going around Food Truck Fridays, and we think that this would be a great event to bring people out of their homes, feel comfortable seeing live theater again, and then invite them back in the theater, hopefully next fall, if not next winter. And we would like to monetize this. It will probably cost us about $10,000 to put the show up. And when we show the picture of the audience in a minute, I'll explain how that's going to work. We have also received a grant to put on a children's show at the same time. It's a musical called Rainbow Fish. It's a story of inclusiveness and kindness and friendship and understanding, the kind of story I think we all need right now. We will do it under Godspell. In other words, it would be a matinee, and then that night we would do Godspell. Rainbow Fish would be free and open to the public. We would have tickets so that we would not have too many people there. However, it would be a gift to the community and try to encourage people to come back to the theater, and people who've never been to the theater before could come and enjoy the show. We see this as a potential audience enticer for us, and then we see it as a wonderful family-friendly thing to do for the town of Matthews. If you want to show the other, there's a picture of the potential set for Godspell. There it comes. There's the bottom of it. It's a very simple set. It would be set in the park. It looks like a corner park in Manhattan, with the chain link fencing, and there's the shoes over the wire, just a simple picnic table and trash cans that would be moved around and used for different set pieces. This would go away for Rainbow Fish. Obviously, we would not use this. And then the last picture that we have is a drawing that Evan Kinsley made for us with the stage on the left. He had the sand pit there, not realizing you all had added all the flowers and bushes there. But the potential with the circles on the ground symbolizing 6 foot distance, we would sell a pod to a family of 4 or 2 folks who would like to come and see the show. We've discussed how we would paint this with chalk that disappears, and they could bring their own blankets, chairs, as long as they stayed within their pod. We talked about a one-way in and a one-way out, and so on and so on. We've had meeting after meeting after meeting. There's a lot of details that I did not want to bore you with, but we're trying to plan and think of any possible scenario that will be available to us in the month of June. What we're looking for are questions from you, as well as actually permission to try to move forward with this project.
Well, I guess I will start with my comments on it. I think it would be awesome. I would love to see you do it. I think everybody's really hungry to participate as a community in something like that, and I think you've laid out a way it can be done safely. Are there other comments from other commissioners? Commissioner McCool?
I just want to applaud you for putting this together. I know Matthew's Playhouse was a very integral part of my childhood. I went to all the summer camps and spent many evenings going to shows throughout my childhood and my early adult life. So anything we can do to keep this alive and keep this going for our community is great. So I think this is awesome.
Thank you.
Any other thumbs up, comments, thumbs down? Everybody's thumbs up. Yeah, June, I think I was just thinking as you were speaking, having witnessed just about everybody that's on our Zoom meeting tonight at one time or another, seeing all of us inside Matthew's Playhouse and having that anticipation of another great show coming out. And common comment is, I can't believe there's so much talent in this area that, we're putting on these really exceptional shows, and it's a great benefit to the community. And so, I don't know, Charlie, do we need to take a vote on this, or is it?
Well, it would not hurt in order to endorse it officially by the board.
Who would like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to support the Matthews Playhouse and its endeavors as outlined in June's presentation tonight.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from Commissioner McCool. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes, sir.
And I vote yes as well. And I just recalled from my youth that isn't Day by Day a song from Godspell? So I'll be looking forward to
Yes.
Day by Day. Yeah, I'll be
Yes.
looking forward to that one. So great. I vote yes as well. So that passes unanimously. Thank you, June. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, you guys. You have no idea how excited we are to even just plan, much less present. So please know that we look forward to seeing you all. And at each performance, I'd like one of you to come up and speak. So just be prepared that you're going to get tapped on the shoulder to be a part of this when we get there.
As long as I don't have to sing, I'll be glad to participate.
No, no,
right.
we just want your presence. Thank you all so much. Look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to agenda item number 6, receive a CMS update from Southeast Learning Community Superintendent, Dr. Tangela Williams. Dr. Williams will not be answering any questions tonight, but will give a presentation and give us an opportunity to submit some questions in writing if we want to have some questions answered. But Dr. Williams, glad to have you with us tonight. So the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. Am I okay to share the screen now? Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone. I am Tangela Williams, Southeast Learning Community Superintendent, and I'm happy to be here tonight on behalf of myself and my Executive Director, Tracy Hayes, and the 29 schools that we serve in the Southeast Learning Community, including the schools in the Matthews community. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to Mayor Higdon for this opportunity to provide this update. And thank you to Mayor Higdon and the board for your continued support and partnership with us in this work. And I want to say thank you to all the school leaders, all the teachers, all the staff that are working hard in our schools to provide a world-class education in a time that we've never seen before. So I just want to acknowledge the hard work that is going on in our schools. In this brief update tonight, I'll cover three areas, one being district updates and initiatives. We'll talk about our return to in-person learning. I'll have some updates from building services for some work that will happen in some of the schools in the Matthews area. We'll look ahead to 2021-22 school year. I can't believe we're already talking about the 21-22 school year, but we are. We'll look at some school data, including school enrollment and school achievement data. And finally, and most importantly, we'll celebrate some of the great things that are happening in our schools. This is a bit.ly that I'm going to provide for anyone who has any questions based off of what I present tonight. You can use this bit.ly to submit your questions. I'll collect them and make sure that we get a response to you. If you use this bit.ly to submit questions tonight, please make sure you include your email address so we can get the response to you in a timely manner. I will leave the bit.ly open through Wednesday, close of business, so that people have time to submit questions and we can get responses to you. The link will also be provided on every slide in the top right-hand corner for your reference. So we'll start with district updates for return to in-person learning. We are happy to say that we do have students back in our buildings, our families that have selected in-person learning versus our full remote academy, our elementary students in our elementary schools and our K-8 schools, as well as our exceptional children in our self-contained programs returned to in-person learning last Monday, February the 15th. And those students returned on an A-B rotation. Group A returned on Mondays and Tuesdays, and Group B will come into the building on Thursdays and Fridays, and we will have an asynchronous day in between, being asynchronous Wednesdays each week. Today, our middle schools and high schools returned to in-person learning on an ABC rotation. Group A was in the building today and will be in the building this week. Group B will start on March the 1st, and Group C will rotate to in-person learning beginning on March the 8th. The calendars that are associated with the rotations are linked in the presentation, there for your reference as well. For the families that have selected our full remote academy, the full remote academy is operating as normal. So if your student has been fully remote and your family chose to remain in the full remote academy, nothing will change for you. You will continue to be fully remote. Our schools are also following the safety protocols that are outlined by our governor, by our state health department, state public health department, which also includes students and staff being required to wear face coverings that cover the nose and the mouth. So we are following those protocols as well as practicing social distancing to the extent possible in our schools so that everyone is staying safe. Our students and staff are being provided with appropriate PPE equipment as well. Updates from building services. We do have a replacement school project underway. The school is being built to replace Lansdowne Elementary. And that construction project will relieve overcrowding at Elizabeth Lane Elementary and is projected to open in August of 2022. In terms of some major building projects that are upcoming, we have some roofing projects that will happen at both Butler and Providence High School. Those are planned to happen over this summer. So we can look forward to that happening for the main building at Butler and also the main classroom and cafeteria building at Providence High School. There's been lots of information and questions about air quality in our schools. We are still able to say that the schools currently are following the outlined protocols for air quality, and we are planning to have air quality upgrades in our schools, including the Matthews schools, over the next 2 years. And we are planning to have that upgrade, which is the needle point bipolar ionization. I'm not going to get into what that means. It is the fancy term or the technical term for the newest technology that will bring cleaner air into the school buildings. Looking ahead to 2021-22, before we get to the school year 21-22, we will have expanded summer programming options for kids. There is a House Bill 82 that is coming through the legislature in North Carolina that might mandate some summer program, but regardless of whether or not that passes, CMS is planning to do expanded summer programming options for this summer. So more details are to come on the summer programming that will be available, more details on the structure, the dates, the logistics, how to enroll, etc. You can look for that information to come from CMS and or your child's school. In terms of curriculum adoptions, we are still working towards Strategic Plan 2024, where we are headed towards the goal of making sure all of our kids have a guaranteed viable curriculum. So we have made some curricular adoption decisions in the district for English language arts. Our students in grades K through 8, they are engaging in the L curriculum, expeditionary learning curriculum for English language arts, and we are looking to adopt a high school English language arts curriculum for the 21-22 school year that is to be determined. In math, our K through 5 students are engaged in the Envisions math curriculum, and our 6th through 8th grade students are engaged in the Open Up math curriculum. Again, looking to Strategic Plan 2024, one of the goals for Strategic Plan 2024 is for all students to have increased access to social and emotional supports. So therefore, in our grades K through 8, all of our students are engaged in the Caring Schools community curriculum, and there is dedicated time built in the school day for social and emotional learning lessons, as well as also in our high schools. The high schools don't yet have a dedicated curriculum for social emotional learning, but we are exploring some options for high school social emotional curriculum. But right now, the resources for our high schools are being provided by the district. On this slide, we have some school data in terms of enrollment. On the far left, the first column, you have the school name, and in parentheses, you have the number of students who are Matthews residents that are enrolled in the schools. In the second column, you have the 1920 membership on the 20th day for the school year of 1920. And then the third column, you have the same 20th day membership number for the 2021 school year. We do see that some schools did have some decreases in membership, and some schools held steady. But our legislature was able to hold schools harmless in terms of allotments for teachers. So we were able to maintain staffing levels in all of our buildings, regardless of the actual membership. When we move to the fourth column, you see the 2021% building utilization without incorporating the mobile units that might be on a campus. And in the fifth column, you have the 2021% building utilization, taking into account mobiles that are on a campus. There's an asterisk on the 4th and the 5th column because the 2021 building utilization percentages are calculated using the 1920 allotment information because we were held harmless for the 2021 school year. On this slide, we're sharing some high-level student achievement data. You have the schools listed as well as the grade level proficiency percentages and the college and career readiness percentages. And these are composite percentages, meaning the percent of students that scored 3s, 4s, or 5s in the grade level proficiency column in English and math. And in the college and career readiness column, those are students that scored 4s or 5s on our end of course and end of grade tests. In the growth status column, you have whether or not a school met, did not meet, or exceeded growth. And in layman's terms, that is pertaining to whether or not the students in the school with at least 2 years of testing history, did they meet, did they exceed, or did they not meet what the score that they were expected to receive on those end of course or end of grade tests. And then in the last column, you have the school performance grades that are included there. And that is a state of North Carolina designation that is a composite of both growth and proficiency rates in a school. And I'll just say, in general, all of the schools in the Southeast learning community, regardless of where a school falls on the continuum of grade level proficiency or college or career readiness or growth status, all of our schools maintain a stance of being in a stance of continuous improvement because we always want to make sure that we are revisiting our processes and our systems and the way that we are engaging kids in learning so that we make sure that we are always improving the experience that kids are getting. And one of the ways that we maintain our stance of continuous improvement is through our school improvement planning processes. So all of the schools in CMS each year must develop a school improvement plan. And that school improvement plan is co-created with the school leadership and the school improvement team. And every school improvement plan is based on 5 indicators, and these are research-based best practices that research shows that if schools are engaged in these practices, they will improve the conditions for learning and teaching in the building. So these listed on this slide are the 5 indicators for school improvement that all schools plan for. But whereas all schools plan for these same 5 indicators, the actual strategies and actions that schools employ in their school improvement plan will be unique to each individual school building. Okay, and now we'll move to some celebrations for the schools in Matthews. And we'll start with Crown Point Elementary, where the principal is Dr. Kevin Woods. And tonight we are highlighting a student and a staff member at Crown Point Elementary. The student we're highlighting is Ethan Christ. He's a 4th grader, and Ethan is one of the best downhill mountain bikers in our country. He's ranked 1st in his age group, and he just recently won the West Virginia State Championship. So we want to highlight Ethan for his accomplishments in mountain biking. And we're also highlighting Mr. Harvey Johnson, who is Crown Point's school counselor. Dr. Woods couldn't say enough about this staff member who goes above and beyond the call of duty to serve the students. And one of the things that Mr. Harvey and his intern are preparing for the parents of Crown Point is a child-parent relationship training. And this is a full 10-week course that Mr. Johnson and his intern will provide for parents. It's free of charge, and it will address social emotional needs and self-esteem of students. And it will also help parents do a better job of communicating with their child. At Elizabeth Lane, we're celebrating our fourth graders at Elizabeth Lane who have been participating in a virtual celebration of learning. This is a way that the teachers have integrated science and English language arts. The students researched an animal and they were presenting their information, and we invited families to join this presentation, and we even had families joining from as far away as India at Elizabeth Lane. Matthews Elementary, where our principal is Penny Beth Crisp. We are highlighting the teacher assistants at Matthews Elementary. Again, Principal Crisp can't say enough about the hard work that the teacher assistants are doing each day at Matthews. Matthews Elementary wouldn't be the place that it is if it was not for the teacher assistants who are not only helping to perform small group instruction, but they are also concerned with the health and safety of kids. They are supporting staff members' children as we supervise them, and they are helping kids get to class every day safely and doing the work to support teachers in the classroom every day. Crestdale Middle School, where the principal is Miss Jennifer Schroeder. Crestdale had a very special visitor today. Our very own superintendent, Ernest Winston, visited Crestdale today, and we have some pictures on the slide here. They had a very good visit with Superintendent Winston today, who was there to support the first day of middle school students being back in person. Principal Schroeder wants us to know that more than 60% of their students are engaged in in-person learning at Crestdale. 6 of their band students have been selected for the all-district band, and Crestdale was recently redesignated as a school to watch. And that is a North Carolina recognition for schools that are doing great things academically and socially for kids. And that recognition has to be reapplied for and reassessed every 3 years. So congratulations to Crestdale Middle. Butler High School, where the principal is Principal Vincent Golden. Lots to celebrate at Butler. First, we'll start with their 1920 graduation rate, which was 90%, which is an awesome feat. And our seniors this year so far have already amassed millions of dollars in scholarships. Our junior ROTC students have earned already $3.5 million in scholarships. And our general population of students at Butler have already earned $6 million and counting in scholarships. Butler is a great supporter of the Special Olympics, and they had 2 students, Nathan and Aria, who participated in the Capitol Hill Day in support of Special Olympics with our legislators. So we want to highlight Nathan and Aria for that hard work. And also the teachers at Butler, they're doing a great job with virtual teaching and hybrid teaching, where teachers are handling kids both virtually and in person when high school returns. And teachers are leading professional development for each other so that they are making sure that they are focusing on student engagement to make sure that kids are highly engaged in the lessons and getting the best out of each lesson each day. And finally, we have Providence High School, where we are engaging our seniors in something that is called Seniorcella. I don't know if you are familiar with Coachella, which is a music festival that happens each year in normal times. So they have kind of done a play on Coachella at Providence High School and calling it Seniorcella, where there are 5 nights of guest speakers for our seniors. And we have a list of the guest speakers that our senior class is having the great opportunity to engage with as they get ready for their next step in life. So some of the speakers that the seniors will get to listen to are Andy Dinkin, Greg Olson, Denise Kiker, Kristen Clark, and Dr. Wayne Johns. So again, I just want to say thank you to Mayor Higdon and the board for allowing this opportunity for us to give an update for the Matthews schools. And I want to remind you of the bit.ly. It's on this slide again. And also my contact information is here and the office phone number is here. So we look forward to continuing to serve the students of Matthews, and we look forward to the continued partnership in this work. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. We really appreciate your time tonight, and I've asked Dr. Williams to come back periodically to update us on our area schools, public schools, and really appreciate it. My two kids all went to Matthews Elementary, Crestdale, and Butler, but it's been a few years ago. I particularly enjoyed hearing of the celebrations and some of the good things that are happening with our students, teachers, and teacher assistants, and that's always good to hear. So again, thank you, Dr. Williams, and I encourage anybody on the board or anybody that's watching tonight that would like to ask, if you have any questions for Dr. Williams, please submit them on the bit.ly that was presented earlier. We are, I think I speak for everyone when I say we're very happy to see our kids back in school. It's important, and to give those that wish to attend in person that opportunity is fantastic. So
Yes, sir.
hopefully I keep telling everybody by this time in the fall, we'll be back to normal. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. So, thank you again, Dr. Williams.
All right, you're welcome, and I'm happy to come back another time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, receive an update on COVID-19 from Emergency Operations Center Commander and our Fire and Emergency Chief, Rob Kinnenberg.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Today marks day 345 of COVID activity in Mecklenburg County. As of this morning, there were 94,388 cases, 848 deaths, and 57 facilities in outbreak status. 185 Matthews residents are in isolation currently in 155 different locations across town. Over the last 2 weeks, the 94,000 cases represents an increase of only 5%, which is down from 12.8 2 weeks ago. 848 deaths represents a 5.7% increase, down from 25% 2 weeks ago. For perspective's sake, the week of January 11th of this year was our peak in Mecklenburg County, where we were averaging 900 new cases a day and 508 people hospitalized and a 16% positivity rate. Happy to announce that things are going in the right direction. And as of today, we have cut the new case rate in half to 447 a day. We have cut the average hospitalizations almost in half to 276 and cut the positivity rate to 8.3%. So things are definitely moving in the right direction. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen continued decline in all the key metrics, which are positive signs, but by no means are they indicators that we are out of the woods yet. Again, the 7-day new case average is running 8.3%, which under the state's color coding system puts us in the orange, but we still have about 217 cases per 100,000, which keeps us in the red. The number of patients hospitalized with a COVID diagnosis is down, but the hospitals report that their ICU patients tend to be staying longer in general, not just because of COVID. As Dr. Williams just reported, CMS went back to school last week for elementary schools and this week for middle and high schools. The number of people being tested for COVID continues to decline as those efforts switch to vaccinations. Let's see, the variants are getting a lot of discussion, and we are hopeful that the vaccines will address the variances and overall hospital census continues to decline throughout the hospitals. As of this morning, only 13 fire department personnel across the county from 6 agencies were out due to COVID. Earlier, we had been as high as 150. We are in public vaccination phase 1, groups 1 and 2. We've got about a 50% rate here in the fire department with first responders and firefighters. We are seeing activity by CVS and Walgreens to move into vaccination efforts. The mass vaccination efforts around the county have been very successful, and a second shot clinic is scheduled for this coming weekend at Bank of America Stadium. Later this week, Hazen and I are having a conversation with the health department about a Matthews area clinic. And we move into group 3 of vaccination Wednesday, the 24th, with teachers, followed by other essential public-facing workers, including police, government, and community service workers, grocery store clerks, transportation, and manufacturing. It's estimated 140,000 people are considered essential workers in group 3. So it will take several months under all the scenarios to get through that group. Over the last month, Matthews Fire and EMS members worked 44 shifts at the vaccination clinics and task forces across the county. And the governor's latest executive order and the health director's directive expire this week. So the health director is waiting to see what direction the governor and the state health director go in as far as reducing restrictions for COVID. So that ends my report. I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Any questions for Chief Kinnenberg? Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. Just a clarification, Chief, please, on the group 1, 2, and 3. Do you have a bullet point on who qualifies in what group?
Group 1 is anybody over 65, and it kind of blurs as we've gone through this. But group 1 is specifically anyone over 16, healthcare workers who have direct patient contact, EMS workers. That's the bulk of phase 1, groups 1 and 2. And then, as I said, we get into the police officers. We have lobbied very hard to get the police officers in and have gotten traction with the law enforcement group as a whole to address the 6 towns' law enforcement needs.
Thank you.
Yes, I believe everybody was copied on the board that I sent a letter to Gibby Harris requesting that our police be prioritized in group 3 and not just lumped in with everybody, because they are very much publicly facing people at close range daily, and I think they deserve that prioritization. Commissioner Whitley, do you have a comment, question? You're on mute, Larry.
Chief, isn't the 24th going to open up for child care workers along with first responders, police officers as well on the 24th of this month?
I believe that's correct. Anyone in education with direct student access and child care is in that group 3 on the 24th.
Also, just for information, we did have our 5th testing last Thursday. However, the weather was really bad. I didn't think they were going to set up. They did set up and went for about an hour and a half, and then the bottom fell out. But there was about 25 people that came through and got tested as well too. So they had to shut down. But just for information, that's always the third Thursday, and each one from 8 o'clock until 2:35. 2:30. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Chief Kinnenberg? Not seeing any, so we'll move on. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Manager, do we have any items to be added to the agenda tonight?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Move on to agenda item number 9, public comment. Maureen, are you going to introduce our speaker?
Yes, we have one speaker signed up tonight, and it's Ms. Vivian Brenner. And Vivian, if you want to unmute and start your camera, we'll go ahead and start the timer when you're ready.
There it goes.
Yep.
Hi, thanks for giving me a chance. We're talking about a sidewalk on Ames Street, and I'm a little concerned about what side of Ames Street is going to get a sidewalk. Is that the side on where the railroad tracks are, or is it on the other side of John Street?
Hazel,
You want me to address that? So Ms. Brenner, the proposed sidewalk, excuse me, on Ames is between the railroad tracks and towards 51, and it's going to be on the side where the Country Inn used to be, the hairdresser is, and the medical development.
less impactful to residences.
Okay.
Old 51 or new?
I'm sorry?
New 50, it's closest to Matthews Township Parkway, I should have said.
Yeah. All right. Well, I wrote a little statement out that I'll read to you to save time. There are 2 blocks with sidewalks on Main Street on either side of Ames, on the other side of John Street. Apparently, there are 2 blocks with sidewalks. Apparently, a former mayor lived on Main and had a sidewalk put on the 2 blocks that go towards Trade Street. That's what I've been told, and apparently it's true, although I don't have any proof of it. I've heard other people have verified that. As the asphalt on Ames, Main, Fremont, Jefferson, and Irwin crumbles, the road is becoming narrower and narrower, making it very dangerous for cars going in opposite directions. It's even more dangerous for pedestrians, except for on those 2 blocks where there are sidewalks. We have a lot of new houses over here too, and I know that those big new houses are probably paying nice taxes. There are drainage ditches instead of storm sewers that have large pools of standing water, which in the warmer months breed mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are known to be disease carriers. This is just science. It would be a nice step into the 21st century to have sidewalks and storm sewers. Some other people that live in this neighborhood back here off Main Street are complaining about these very bad bumps on John Street at Fremont and John Street at Ames. The side next to the veterinary office and the side next to the gelato shop. I think they're a result of the heavy semi-truck trailers that are using John Street instead of Independence, which is more suited to that kind of traffic. But it's making it really hard to get in and out of all those streets. And if you have a low-riding car, it's going to scrape the bottom of your car at this point. So I'm just concerned about this side of John Street, all these streets back here not being taken care of, especially getting so narrow with the asphalt crumbling. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Brenner. Appreciate your comments. Hazen, can we have CJ or somebody get back with Ms. Brenner on some of her comments, maybe a schedule for when Paving is.
Sure. I think the asphalt, definitely, I knew exactly what she's talking about. Get DOT to grind that down. As far as the sidewalk and the ditching, I mean, that's pretty much, that's a major capital project that I think the board will need to discuss how you want to fund that. Certainly is, older develop, you don't see that in our new subdivisions. Of course, we have standards that require curb and gutter and sidewalks, but.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 10, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept it? Approve it?
I'll make that motion. Approve consent agenda A through C5.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Commissioner McCool. Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item 11, unfinished business. Consider Town Hall cupola lighting options. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, it's my first time doing this. Let me try to figure this out. Jay, are you driving right now?
I am. Did you want to share your own screen?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd prefer to do that. Thanks. All right, can you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Hopefully the one without my notes.
Yep.
Okay, before we start, I'm sorry, page 1. I just want to give you an update on the repairs of the cupola. The company has been out there the past few weeks, did almost all the repairs on the main roof of the cupola, and then in the last rainstorm, found a new leak under the finial. So we've asked them to go ahead and repair that. I'm hoping they'll be done with that this week. So that's where we are with the repair on the roof of the cupola. So going on, obviously this is Town Hall. You have the cupola, and some of the things I'll be talking about are the gable ends where the clock, here, let me do this, where the clock is located, the triangular area here, and the frieze, which is the area with the Town Hall library lettering and then going around to the side. I was asked at one of the previous meetings to look at colored lighting for the cupola area of Town Hall and push forward with that. Color Kinetics is the company that does most of the colored lighting for commercial buildings worldwide. So I contacted the company that represents them here. That's EGI Associates. Just so happens the president of EGI Associates is a resident of Matthews and was very interested in coming out. So what he did is he came out and he actually gave us a demo of what it would look like if we lit the cupola at Town Hall. And I made a shortened video of that. As you can see, you can start off with really any color white. We started off with a warmer white, and then it can change colors through any of the phases of the rainbow. So, red, blue, green. I got that wrong. Anyway, the colors of the rainbow, it can hit every one. It's very accurate, very bright. I think Reverend Whitley said he could see it coming down Charles Street when he was going that way. So anyway, that's what it looks like. While we were out there, some members of the board had asked what the cost would be to possibly light the other areas with colored lighting so that we could light those at the same time as a cupola. So the cost for the cupola is $20,723. That includes the lighting and the control system. To add on the gable end where the clock is would be $8,713. To light the frieze area is $24,433. And either of these could be done independently of the other. So if you only want to light the cupola, you could do that. You want to light the cupola and the frieze, you could do that. cupola, gable end, you could do that, or all three as well. So that is it for my presentation. Let me stop sharing, or actually any questions while I have that up?
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. CJ, the frieze I interpreted, because I had to Google it or look it up on Wikipedia, I thought it was only where the lettering is. And when you say the frieze, I thought you said 24,000. Does that include behind the pillars or as well as the pillars? Because it's a smaller area than the gable. I'm not sure why it would be so much more expensive.
Right. So it's my understanding that it does include both sides of the, and I'm sorry, I don't know the correct terminology, but it's my understanding the frieze covers all three sides above the columns there, which is why it would be more expensive.
Okay.
Those lights would be located where? Actually on the frieze or on the ground or on the roof or where?
So what we were talking about is possibly running the electricity and putting the lights on the top of the columns. Columns actually come out from the face of the frieze several inches, and there's room there where we could put the lights on the tops of the column, the pediments, I think they're called. Commissioner Urban can probably answer that better than I, but on the tops of the columns there to light the frieze.
Commissioner McCool.
This may be a silly question, but is this the cheapest option, or is this the option that the contractor gave us? I don't know if there's a better priced option that may be a little cheaper.
Sure. So there are likely cheaper options. I went with what was recommended as far as professionals who do this day in, day out. I think they said they light 80% of the Charlotte buildings you see uptown. So I really wanted something, if we're going to do it once and do it right, rather than, I've done some at my own home, and I was actually out there soldering this weekend because some of it had failed. So don't want to have to do that here.
Thank you.
Well, I must admit to having a little sticker shot. It's more expensive than I anticipated. So the plan for the clock would be for multiple colors there as well? I can't imagine why we'd ever want to have like a red clock.
So, and it's not the clock, it's the areas around the clock. And I guess it would probably hit the clock as well, but it's more of this triangular area. And I asked for the option to do that. If you wanted to keep it the soft white, you could do that. But if we ever wanted to change it to match the cupola, we'd be able to do that as well.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Garner, do you have a question?
This is just, I mean, is the cupola lit now or before the repairs were made?
Yes, it is lit now with standard bulbs.
And so getting LED in there is an upgrade. And I would imagine that changing the colors isn't that much more expensive than just doing bright white with technology as it is. Or
so the cost of the controls are already pretty much there. If we're doing the cupola already, and if I'm misunderstanding your question, let me know. So we already have the controls for the cupola. To add in the ability to change the colors on there, are really just upgrading the lights, which is maybe, and I'm guessing, so please don't hold me to this. It's probably an additional $2,000 for the gable end expense and more like an $8,000 cost for the frieze area.
I guess I'm asking what the difference in simply putting white LEDs in the cupola versus having the color changing effect.
I don't have that. We have, the standard white lighting that works now. What I was asked was to look for the ability to have colored lighting up there. So I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Okay. No, I can appreciate that. Thank you.
Guess this is a question for Hazen or Charlie. Can we use tourism funds so people will come see the amazing Technicolor Town Hall?
I may have to think about that one a little bit. We may.
Yeah, I mean,
It was talked about the general fund, I believe, in the memo.
I put that in there, Commissioner Miller. I did not ask Mr. Buckley whether we could use tourism funds.
Yeah.
Commissioner Whitley?
I was at the presentation, and once you see it in person, I just think it really gives an accent to the town of Matthews. We don't have any buildings that we can put in the color to represent or celebrate any holidays or any services. But, I would like to see the cupola to be funded, and maybe we could purchase the rest of them one a year for 3 years, and so we can get them so they all be lit up with different colors. I think that's a good place for the building to be lit for the town of Matthews, for us to celebrate. I know about a month ago, they had issued an order for all towns to light up in representative of all the lives that was lost. And I think it'd just be a wonderful change in the right direction for the town of Matthews. And if we can do the cupola with the lighting, then add the ovens on, or either do the cupola and the clock and then add the oven on the next year, if we can put that in our budget. That's my recommendation.
Mr. Buckley?
Well, now that I've given it had a chance to think about it, didn't know the questions coming up. I think if you put in plain white lights, then that's just lighting and wouldn't be subject to expenditures of tourism funds. But if you put in the multicolors and make it, as Commissioner Whitley says, a celebration, then I think you could use tourism funds for the enhanced lighting.
Now you're speaking my language, Charlie. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I would, because I think I would like to make a motion that that we would consider the town cupola lighting option that was presented by C.J. O'Neill tonight. That we find the funding, whether we could get them through tourism or funds to light these three in different multicolors.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Whitley, a second from Commissioner McCool. To be clear, that's to use tourism funds to light all three areas that CJ mentioned.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
No, and I'd like to elaborate if it's okay right now.
Sure.
Is it okay, Mayor?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
We just heard from a resident about sidewalks, and I realize that's not from tourism funds, but I believe that there are needs that can be addressed in town with tourism funds, and spending $50,000 plus on lighting right now feels irresponsible with a budget that's just coming out of maybe a slight hit from COVID.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Garner. Commissioner Urban?
I'm going to say no. I was going to prepare for a substitute motion, but let's see where this goes.
Commissioner Miller?
I would say no, but I would agree with Reverend Whitley in that a phased approach might be best. I'm confused as to why the freeze is 3 times the cost. We could eliminate the 2 sides and try a phased approach. So no.
So it's down to me. I am willing to vote no, but I would like to see a substitute motion made. Is that fair? So I will vote no as well. Would someone like to make a different motion, perhaps Commissioner Urban?
Well, I would. I think we didn't do this one to digest properly and follow the process. I've remiss and I didn't file a substitute motion right away, but my motion would be to just fund the cupola through tourism funds and then look through years 2 and 3 to go back to those and then vote on them likewise. But my motion is for the cupola only at this time.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Miller. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
No.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That passes 6-1 with Mayor Pro Tem Garner in opposition. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 12, new business. 12A, receive the monthly budget report from Assistant Town Manager Becky Hall. Becky?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Glad to be with you tonight in my continued capacity as Interim Finance Director for the time being. We have in front of you tonight the budget report for month ending January 31st. So that represents 7 months of the fiscal year. And we have seen a little bit of a shift in our main revenue source in our property tax revenues. But really what this means is we were tracking significantly ahead where we were last year. And what's really happened is we've really just settled down to pretty much where we were this time last year. So we speculated on this in last month's budget report that we weren't exactly sure what was causing this. It's possible that folks just paid early, but either way, things have settled. And the large gains that we were tracking with have been absorbed, and we are really just pretty much where we tend to be this time of year. So when we project that out for the remainder of the fiscal year and the amount of funds that we tend to collect between now and the end of the fiscal year, we expect that we're still going to end at about 99% of our projected revenues. So we are comfortable that this is still a very solid revenue line for us, and we are not overly concerned about this line. We will, of course, continue to monitor it as we move forward in the coming months. Looking at local sales tax, this is a positive line for us. If you recall, during last year's budget, we did budget conservatively. We were concerned that this line would be down, and we have continued to be pleased with the performance of this line. So we are tracking both ahead in terms of the collection rates of what we budgeted, and then in the overall revenues, dollars wise, we are also about $100,000 ahead of where we were this time last year. So that continues to be a good line for us. Unrestricted intergovernmental revenues, it's pretty much equal to where we have been in the past at this time this year, representing about 27% of revenues expected. Those revenues come in on kind of a different cycle. So we're exactly where we expect to be this time of year. Pell Bill funds are ending the year down a little bit from what we projected we would receive. These funds do come from the state and they are restricted. So it will result in a slightly smaller paving budget for CJ's operations, but it will not otherwise create a deficit that we would be concerned about. Recreation revenues, we continue with the same information pretty much every month, where the revenues are significantly down, but the expenditures have a corresponding decrease because unfortunately, Parks and Recreation has probably been the hardest hit in their ability to provide events that the community typically enjoys. So again, the revenues are down. We are not concerned about this line because of where we are with expenditures. Tourism taxes are also doing well. So we are still tracking ahead of where we were this time last year. So that is another bright spot in the budget. Conversely, investment earnings are basically non-existent. We saw the interest rates basically completely flatten out. And so we do expect that we should end the year around $50,000 less than budgeted, but we expect that we'll be able to absorb that in other areas. Our departments continue to do a great job managing their expenses. Obviously, we have had some unanticipated times during this fiscal year, but they continue to do a great job keeping everything in check, and we have no concerns. So all in all, we are doing well in terms of our revenues. This is the month that we kind of go into the black, where we have collected a significant amount of our property taxes. And so right now our expenditures are lower than revenues by about $3.6 million. So again, as always, we'll continue to monitor, but we feel good about the year as we start heading into budget season for next year. So happy to answer any questions, but that is the report.
Thank you, Becky. Are there any questions? Well, still seems to be fairly good news. So sounds good for now. Thank you. Move on to agenda item 12B, consider purchase of a fire rescue vehicle. Chief Kinnifer.
Good evening again, Mayor, Council. Okay, Jay's going to drive, so we'll see how this goes. So you have the memo in your packet just to hit some of the high points. So Matthews Fire and EMS operates 5 pieces of heavy apparatus, 3 engines, a ladder, and a heavy rescue, and they are all integral to our operation and our ISO score. Idlewild also operates 2 engines, which we partly fund. One of the things we did early on in my tenure is to establish a capital replacement program, given that heavy apparatus lasts anywhere from 12 to 20 years with its function. A replacement rescue has been in the CIP since FY19. Or for 19, but budget pressures have pushed it till this year. The current rescue is a 1998 American LaFrance, so it's 23 years old. It's bothered by issues associated with being 23 years old. American LaFrance, which was a Freightliner company, has gone out of business, and all of the parts have been purchased by Chinese venture capitalists. Most of the pneumatic, hydraulic, and rope rescue equipment on the current truck came with the truck in the late 1990s and early 2000s, and it too is at end of service life. The department's breathing air system is integrated into the current truck, and the compressor and its parts are no longer manufactured. So over the last 2 years, we have carefully evaluated the types of services we are able to provide with our staffing and our training. We've looked to our neighbors to see what kind of services and staffing they can provide. We have drastically increased the capability of our members through training. We looked at the breathing air system as part of the rescue and as a standalone system. Through that process, we decided to eliminate the air compressor and air storage from any rescue design, saving at least $75,000 and weight and increasing storage. We looked at in-station trailered truck mounted and reliance on our neighbors for breathing air, because we know this is we have to have breathing air to operate. So with all that in mind, we initially started out 2 years ago talking to 10 different manufacturers. We cut that to 4 and drafted a set of standardized specs, given that each manufacturer does business a little bit differently. We have narrowed that to 1, and we are certain that this apparatus will give us at least 20 years of dependable service. This vendor also sells equipment, so we get a drastic reduction in the cost of replacement equipment. So it is anticipated we can replace the truck and the equipment for under $800,000. We received a quote for a new Emergency 1 Typhoon Heavy Rescue for $633,706 with approximately 1 year completion. And the cost to equip the truck is approximately $150,000. So this is what the department proposes. And we're at the end of both quotes. At the end of February, the costs go up. So we would like to contract for the truck as soon as possible, finalize our equipment needs, and secure quotes from a variety of vendors. Finance department will arrange financing for the apparatus to coincide with its delivery. As far as air goes, sometimes you have to believe in being at the right place at the right time. We went to Hickory to look at their truck, their new rescue, as a relative sample. And while we were there, we learned that they were surplusing their 1997/2008 air unit, and it was available. And they have agreed to sell it to Matthews for $25,000, which was the reserve bid price on Gov Deals. It's recommended we use undesignated fund balance to purchase that and solve that problem immediately. Once all this comes together, if you approve, the current rescue and surplus equipment will be sold to reduce the debt. We already have an interested party there. And the first debt payment would not be due until 1 year after the truck arrives. Financing for a 7 to 10 year note is favorable with about $100,000 a year in capital replacement. It's also part of the capital replacement is how you pay for them. So the debt on the 2 engines we purchased 3 and 4 years ago rolls off about the time the debt for the rescue would come on. So scroll down a little more, Jay. There we go. So this is down at the bottom is the picture of our current rescue. So you've got some idea of what we're replacing. Scroll down a little further. This is Apex, North Carolina's E1 Typhoon, very similar to what we would be purchasing. And the one at the bottom is Hickory's air truck, the one that is available to us currently. So scroll back up to the motions. There we go. So we are asking you to approve a contract with E1 for the truck and the equipment and financing not to exceed $800,000. And we are asking for the council to approve the purchase of Hickory's 1997-2008 Anchor Ritchie Spartan Scott air unit, 25,000 plus. There is a potential that we have to pay a buyer's reserve because it came off of Gov Deals, but it would not exceed $30,000 to purchase the truck.
Commissioner McCool.
I have a lot of thoughts. I guess my first thought is, I'm from 1998. That's when I was born, and I'm running just fine. So I want to know what's going on with this truck. But all kidding aside, I think it would be nice to know what's actually wrong with it. And second, there's a lot of money when especially I've heard from you, Rob, Chief, that there's a need for a new fire department and stuff. This is a big ask when there's significant other things that are needed right now. I personally don't see the necessity or to move so fast on this. This may be something in my personal opinion that may need to wait, but I'd like to kind of know what's wrong with it, that it's such an urgent.
Well, okay, I'll just touch on some things. The manufacturer's gone out of business, so parts are basically non-existent that are specific to American LaFrance. The engine, and I don't know if you know a lot about engines and transmissions, it's a Detroit Diesel Series 55. They made this motor for 2 years. The motor was not reliable and parts are not available for the motor. The suspension is an air ride suspension, so it sits on 23-year-old airbags that any rubber device, anything made of rubber over time degrades and cracks. So the suspension under the truck is not the best that it could be. The generator that powers this truck, we've had problems with the drive shafts that drive it. The light towers that are on the truck, we can no longer get parts for those. The compressor, as I mentioned, we cannot no longer get parts for the compressor. So it's a matter of time before something breaks and we have a large paperweight, to put it nicely. There is a market for this truck. There are people that, won't use it as much as Matthews uses it. And this is one of those vehicles that when the worst things happen, this is the truck that brings the equipment to fix the problem. So if Jay will scroll down to the equipment replacement plan, again, we've basically got 7 pieces of heavy apparatus that we have to. Can you get a little further, Jay? There you go. 7 pieces of equipment that we have to replace in a roughly 12 to 15 year cycle. So as you can see, we have to strategically spread purchases and debt out over time. So this is the 10-year forecast. I can pull up the 30-year forecast if you want to go out that far. But if we do not replace the rescue, then about the same time we need to replace the ladder, both trucks are now wearing out. And if we go a few years further, the first replacement engine is due. So if we don't keep moving equipment and moving along with the replacement, eventually we wind up with too many pieces that have to be replaced at the same time. You mentioned Station 3, and Station 3 is important as far as coverage and service. The decision on whether or not to pursue Station 3 will drive the timing of the replacement of the ladder, which is the next piece. If we're going to build Station 3, then we need to look to replace Idlewild 92 first and ride the ladder a little longer. That's a decision down the road. The reason for the Hickory truck, while it is 12 years old, it's only got 300 hours on the compressor. And as you can see down where it says bottles in the red, we have 85 breathing apparatus bottles that will have to be replaced by 2027. And that decision will drive whether the compressor we have at that point is serviceable for the whatever breathing equipment looks like at that point, or whether it's a short term. The cheapest breathing air option we could come up with is at least $65,000. Outside of purchasing the Hickory truck.
Commissioner Miller.
Chief, I commend you for doing the research and providing such detailed information. Apparently it was serendipity that you were up in Hickory and stumbled on perhaps a good deal or trade. And so I'd like to make a motion to allow the town manager to enter in a contract with Fire Connections Incorporated /E1 Fire Apparatus to construct and deliver one E1 custom rescue truck to the town of Matthews labeled Q103713 for the base price of $633,706 and to include the cost of equipment for the truck in the overall financing package with a total financed amount not to exceed $800,000. And I would include in this motion to approve purchase of a 1997/2008 Spartan Anchor Richie Scott Air Unit from the Hickory Fire Department, using up to $30,000 of undesignated fund balance to fund that purchase.
I think Charlie's going to want two motions.
Just, Commissioner Miller, if you would split those into two separate motions, we're going to be dealing with financing on the larger purchase. So I think it would be better for the financing and the certifications we have to do and the resolutions that you make those two separate motions and not combined.
Can I subtract the second motion, or do you want me to reread the first one?
No, just subtract the second part of that motion, and then after that vote, we'll vote on the purchase.
Okay, then it ended with the term $800,000.
Motion from Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Urban. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland. Did you have some discussion first?
Discussion. I mean, I heard what Commissioner McCool said. I'd like to hear some of, and I certainly, I think there was a lot of good information that we received from the chief, but I was wondering, I'd like to hear what some of the other commissioners have to, what their thoughts are on this. I'm not as up to date on the equipment. This is my first, I haven't been on this in a while, on the board in a while. And, I know these plans on buying these equipment is stuff that you have to do over a long period of time and space out. I'd like to hear what some of the other folks may have some important information that I'd like to hear.
Okay, I'd like to just make a comment to that effect. One thing I've learned since being an elected official from speaking to CJ and Chief Kinnenberg, Chief Pennington, and Chief Kinnenberg, your predecessor, is when we get to a situation where you're having to have parts custom made for repairs, you're entering into a point of diminishing returns. If we have to go to a machine shop and have every part made for this truck when something breaks on it, in the long term, it's time to replace it, in my opinion. And we've seen that over and over again. When there's no replacement parts, and this is a mechanical device, it's going to fail. We're going to have the parts custom made and find somebody that's talented enough to do that, and they're going to charge us whatever they want to, and we're going to have to pay it. And I don't want to be in that situation. So that's why I will support this motion. Commissioner Urban.
Yeah, no fault to the predecessor of Chief Kinneborough or the predecessor of Clark Pennington. Haven't been on the board long enough to have seen we were running on fumes in a lot of circumstances. And the thing that we learned very, very quickly was that we worked with what we had and didn't realize how bad things were getting. And I think we shouldn't be sacrificing when it comes to life safety, police, fire, and EMS. And Chief Kinneborough and Chief Pennington have been working on a program to resuscitate our program to get it back on track. And this is just one of those pieces of the puzzle that are really, really critical and essential. And I'm hoping over time, as we get into a better rhythm, people will feel more comfortable about this. But had Commissioner Bland, had you been around several years ago before Chief Kinneborough was on here, it was not a pleasant conversation. And I feel better today that we're moving in this direction, and I won't take a risk in trying to put a Band-Aid on things of this nature.
I was just wondering, you talking about.
Go ahead, Dave.
I'd like to ask you a question if I could. You talking about having special equipment made because they're not being made anymore. Have we had any of those problems or any large expenses? Just out of curiosity. Maybe the chief can tell us. Chief Kinneborough.
Mr. Bland, anything you have done with fire apparatus is expensive because I can't go to Woody's, I can't go to Creson's, I can't go to Liberty. I have to go to a fire truck mechanic. We had to get injectors for this motor, and it took us 6 months to find injectors for the motor. That's what puts fuel into the engine. Like I said, the air compressor, we can't, the truck is just plagued with out of date equipment. We have, for example, the extrication equipment on the rescue is powered by hydraulics that uses ethylene glycol or phosphate glycol, which is extremely caustic. So it wears out the pumps, the hoses, and the tools. The industry has seen a change to battery operated tools, actually, that, with a corded or cabled piece of extrication equipment, you're limited to, you can only go as long as the cable or the cord. The battery operated equipment allows us to go any distance. The heavy lifting bags, the only way to test those is to destroy those. So if we were to test all of our airbags, we'd probably blow them in the process. So, a lot of this equipment came over from the volunteer fire department. We have no records of precisely when it was purchased. We know most of it came on the truck.
Okay.
Equipment and technology has changed substantially. I hope that at least addresses some of your questions.
It did. Thank you.
Commissioner McCool?
I was originally leaning no on this, but I've learned in my life when there's people who know more than you on this, and I know Chief knows a lot more about this than I do. He seems fairly out of it, so I'm going to vote yes on this. I think this is something we need. You've changed my mind. I think we need to stay up to date and stay ahead of the curve. So,
I had
appreciate it.
Nearly identical reaction the first time I started hearing of some of the expenses for this emergency. It's just outrageous. I think I was surprised there were 10 manufacturers. I didn't think there were that many, and that was one of the reasons the cost is so high. But this equipment is very, very expensive. But I believe it was Commissioner Urban that said this is not an area we want to skimp on anything. We want to make sure we don't want to have this vehicle going down the street, the airbags blow out, and it can't get to its destination, and maybe somebody dies because we don't have the best equipment. We certainly don't want to be in that position. Are there any other comments before we complete the vote? I believe we had a motion by Commissioner Miller, a second by Commissioner Urban. And are we ready to take the vote, or is there any other comment? Ready? Okay. Commissioner Bland, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of it.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously.
Yeah.
Take good care of it.
You want me to vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Whitman. I want you to vote, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think in the 5 years that we've been on board, I believe this is the third fire apparatus that we had purchased. Is that right, Rob? That sound about right? Because I know I dedicated 2 of them before, but yes, I'll vote for it as well.
Yes, to answer your question, we replaced engine 22 and engine 12 in 17 and 18.
That's right.
And those 2 trucks replaced an 84 and a 92. So we definitely get our money's worth out of a truck.
Again, that passes unanimously. Sorry, Commissioner Whitley. Had a momentary lapse of reason there, but we got everybody voted. Take good care of it, Chief. It's an expensive piece of equipment, so you'll do that.
Jeff, you going to make the second motion?
Thank you. Commissioner Miller?
Yes, I'll make the second motion, no problem. The second motion would be that council purchase a 1997, 2008 Spartan Anchor Ritchie Scott Air unit from Hickory Fire Department using up to $30,000 of undesignated fund balance to fund that purchase.
The motion,
Second.
do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Urban. I do have a question. 1997, 2008, is 2008 the model number, or did it take 11 years to build it?
No, but fire departments are resourceful. The truck was originally a pumper, and in 2008, Hickory had the fire body and pump removed, and had Anchor Ritchie, who is a fire truck repair and fabrication company, build the rescue body that encloses the air system, the light tower, and the generator. The truck served them until December of last year when their new rescue was fully put into service. So it's of the vintage where there's no computers. It needs fuel and electricity, and it'll run.
Sounds something like an old Johnny Cash song. What model is it? Some people might remember that. We'll go on with the vote. We have a motion from Commissioner Miller, second from Commissioner Urban. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Move on to agenda item 12C, consider application for a safety grant for an automatic gate at Squirrel Lake Park. Corey King.
I think I'm on.
There you go. We can hear you.
Okay. Hi, thank you, Mayor, Town Board. The North Carolina League of Municipalities offers a safety grant that its members are eligible to receive. Now, as a member of the league, the town can apply for these dollars to purchase equipment and services with the intent of increased safety in the workplace for both people and property. The maximum amount of this award is $5,000. Staff is looking at automated gates for the entrance at Squirrel Lake Park as a project to apply for this grant. This project will certainly benefit Parks and Recreation, Police, and Public Works. Removing the daily task of opening and closing Squirrel Lake Park allows these staff hours to be reallocated within the respective departments. And it also provides a more consistent opening and closing times for citizens. The estimated cost for the automated gate completely installed is $15,000. The one requirement of the grant is that it is a one-for-one funding match. The town would pay the initial cost upfront. The funding would come from existing operating Parks and Recreation budget. And if awarded, the reimbursement of $5,000 would then be provided by the league. And so the ask of the board tonight is that commitment of at least $5,000 to complete the project and maximize the award amount. And again, the estimated cost for the project is $15,000. So we would meet that threshold. And if the project is awarded, we would be committed to delivering the project, being the automated gates.
Corey, I've got a question. Do we have any of these gates installed in any other park?
We do not. This will be the first in Matthews.
Is there any concern about vandalism or things of that nature?
No. There are multiple examples around Mecklenburg County. Actually, we're using some of the specs that they used when they installed a number of them a couple of years ago. We feel pretty good about the project and the vendor that so far, the vendor that's number one, we feel good about their product.
Okay. Any questions for Corey before we, Commissioner Miller? You're on mute.
Thank you. Corey, I would assume that they're programmed to open at 8 or 9 a.m. and close at 7 or 8 p.m. or whatever. Is there an electronic eye, and how would you know that no one is still inside the park who would have to get out after they automatically close?
It does have an automatic eye. That's one of the safety features that when we had a conversation with our liaison, that, whatever you call it, just call it the eye, was a requirement for her to feel good about this as a project to apply for it. And it really is with the timing of it. The police department would still enter into the park at night, again, at whatever, depending on what their call load is. They will still enter the park, drive through, confirm that park is completely empty. Same thing with the bathrooms. This would not lock the bathrooms. Would have to I guess, go through their normal process inside the park. This is really the timing in the mornings. Will prevent the backlog of cars parking out in front of Squirrel Lake in the mornings, and then creating the expectation that, hey, the gate's going to close at 9 o'clock in June, and I guess visitors would be, I guess, more strongly encouraged to leave. Again, based on that call log, sometimes I'll say in the summertime, gates may not get closed until after 10:30 or so. Again, just with the volume of calls the police department has.
Okay, thank you.
I think most folks know I live in Ashley Creek neighborhood adjacent to Squirrel Lake Park, and there are other neighborhoods on Privet Lane that are adjacent to Squirrel Lake Park. And I have heard feedback from folks that live over here that I think they would be appreciative of a gate that automatically closes, because we sometimes, when the gate's not closed, you'll have people entering the park at 10 o'clock at night or something, and they don't have any business in there. And the neighbors get a little nervous when they see people in the park that late at night. So I think this would be a nice addition to the park. Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Were automatic locks installed on the bathrooms maybe 2 years ago?
In Stumptown, yes.
Oh, at Stumptown, not at Squirrel Lake.
Yeah, I'll say we're not as impressed with that product. We're still trying to find one that works a little bit better that we would then have put into Squirrel Lake Park.
Commissioner Miller?
Corey, is there a reason you're not asking for 10,000 if your estimate is 15 grand?
This would, we did find some efficiencies in our operating budget. So we are able to not ask for more money. I'll just put it that way. And this grant opportunity just really, I guess, gave us the extra push. We have looked at this project a couple of times in different budget years, different pressures, force those dollars elsewhere. But this year, we are able to do it without asking for any additional money.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Miller?
I'll make a motion that we approve a financial commitment of at least of $5,000 for the funding match required as part of the NCLM safety grant program for the gate at Squirrel Lake Park.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Miller, second from Commissioner Urban. Is there any more discussion before I call for a roll call vote? Seeing none, see some heads nodding. So Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So there you go, Corey. So good luck. Sounds like a really good project.
It's going to be good.
Let's move on to 12D, consider purchase of human resource management system. Tanya McGovern.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As we've talked about a couple different times, the town does currently lack a cohesive and efficient system for onboarding and managing our employees and volunteers, especially in a electronic way. So I have HR and the finance department have worked together, and we have talked to 6 different vendors and received bids from 2 of them. And I'm here tonight to ask you to allow the town manager to enter into a contract with UKG Incorporated, who is the lowest responsible bidder for their HRMS system called UltiPro. Doing this will create some efficiencies both for HR and finance that will allow staff to take on additional tasks. The implementation cost for this for UltiPro will be $11,000, and the anticipated annual cost will be $49,800. And that will put us in a 3-year contract with UltiPro or with UKG for the UltiPro product. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this.
Commissioner Urban. You're on mute, sir.
Okay. Have you researched other communities that are similar to our size, Pineville, Mint Hill, et cetera, for the types of software they're using and what they're running in the file? I mean, I'm wondering where we are apples to apples with other jurisdictions.
So there's been lots of chatter on listservs about different products. No one around us is using UltiPro. A lot of them are not using cohesive systems that are just a single system. And that's really what I'm after, and what finance and I have discussed with this is the ability to have everything in one place is extremely helpful and extremely beneficial, rather than trying to piece systems together that may or may not work cohesively, which is what we currently have. You know, we have a recruitment with NeoGov. We have HRMS, or we have a human resources module with Edmunds. We do a whole lot of stuff on Excel spreadsheets, do a whole lot of stuff on paper. UltiPro really will provide that seamless system where truly from the time an employee applies with us until they retire from us, everything that happens with them is in one system. Their performance evaluations, their training can go in there, everything can go in that one system.
Okay, as a follow-up, then have you talked to any communities that are currently using this software, and have they been able to discuss with you the pros and cons of the product?
Yes, we did talk to multiple references who are using this product, both municipalities, and the Raleigh airport was the North Carolina
user
reference. Sorry, lost my words for a second. But we have talked to multiple municipalities who are using this product, and we've received nothing but very positive feedback, both on the implementation, the maintenance. Anytime there's any problems or questions, the customer service has been great and responsive. No one really had anything bad to say about the product.
If I could just make a comment, I haven't spoken directly to you, Tanya, but I have talked to Becky, and it appears that Matthews is in many ways with this cobbled system. I mean, we're really running a very old-fashioned HR system. A lot of it's still on paper, still a lot of redundant work that our staff has to do that our employees could be doing themselves, as far as vacation and things like that, or checking on whatever, insurance. So I can't vouch if this is the best product, but I do believe there is a need for something better than we have now. And I'm also hopeful that this would free up Tanya and her staff to be able to do more and different recruitment efforts and things like that we've been asking for as well. So, Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
I believe that over the past year, I've talked to both the fire chief and the police chief about integrating an HR system, and they felt like this would make their jobs more efficient as well, or their departments, not necessarily their jobs. Is this a system that would help them with recruitment or with onboarding and ease that process in the fire department and the police department? For that reason, I support it. I think that not only does it serve our HR department, but it also makes our police and fire jobs more efficient.
Commissioner Bland.
I'm just always a little reluctant dealing with software companies. I've had some bad experiences with, docket control software and different things like that. That's why I'd like to be sure that it's been fully vetted and you've checked it out. There's so many people that produce things like this, and they look, all the bells and whistles look wonderful when someone else that knows how to run the system is running it. But when you sit down and try to figure it out, sometimes it's not quite as easy. That's why I want to be sure I assume you vetted it out and checked a bunch of different ones and talked with the people that, you know, are actually using the product out there. You said I think that you said that the people in North Carolina were the airport in Raleigh.
In Raleigh.
Yeah, and you know,
and specifically the reason we spoke with them is they also participate with the state health plan. So we wanted to talk to someone specifically who is integrating with the state health plan, because that's one of our big, you know, one of the big ways the HR specialist spends her time is currently when there's an update to benefits, she has to touch, like if someone changes their address, she has to go and touch every single benefit to change their address. And one of the things we were after was a system where when the address gets changed by the employee, it gets sent to HR, we approve it, and then it's electronically sent out to our vendors. So, you know, what usually takes her an hour and a half or so at this point in time can take 5 minutes in the future. And that's just an example.
Tanya, is there an option to try this software for 1 year instead of 3 to see how you like it?
I can absolutely request that in the contract. The 3 year locks in the rate,
okay,
which is also attractive, but I can absolutely ask the vendor for a short term.
To Commissioner Bland's point, if we get this and we find out that it's not everything we thought it was, we're kind of locked in for 3 years. I don't know, it might be more expensive.
can I ask another question too?
Sure.
One of the software systems that we got in one of my businesses, we actually owned the software, and you know, even though we decided we would switch, when we switched to something else, we were leasing that or using their servers or whatnot, as opposed, we still had the software that ran the other system so that we could have gone back to it if we wanted to. I don't know are we leasing this? Are we buying software? Is it running on our servers, or is it running out in the ether or whatever they call it, the cloud? Cloud. That's a cool thing. Yeah.
It is a cloud-based system. UKG assumes the responsibility for maintaining everything, both from a security and a reliability standpoint. It is not hosted on site. But Edmunds is the same way. Right now, it is a cloud-based product as well.
Well, one of the things, the one that we've got now at my other business, it is a cloud-based thing. The problem is it's running on Amazon's servers. And so at Christmas time and at different times of the year, the servers slow down and things when you need stuff right away, you sit there and twiddle your thumbs while you're waiting for it to come up. So I'm curious, where are the servers that are there hosting? You know, there's a lot I don't understand about things, but I know that it's very expensive. And when something goes wrong, it's hard to fix. So that's why I'm asking some of these questions. What can you tell me about that?
So I don't know exactly where their servers are. A lot of the IT stuff is over my head as well. Wayne, our IT manager, has reviewed the IT specs and was comfortable with the way everything runs. I believe in their contract, there was a 99.7% rate of time that the system has to be up and running over the course of a year, which is a very high percentage of time. So this company's been in business for a very long time. If Wayne is comfortable with it, performing from an IT perspective the way we would need it and expect it to, I'm trusting his judgment on that.
One thing I've seen in the world that I'm familiar with in engineering, almost all the software is now cloud-based. You can't hardly buy any software anymore. It's all leased, and it's pretty expensive as well. Commissioner Urban.
I think we need to test drive this puppy, and to go to the mayor's point that maybe a 1 year trial period would make the most sense. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. What you have going, try it. Like the mayor, in my business, we're software driven, and we were told about the thing that was going to solve all problems. And we have never taken that piece of software out of the box because the learning curve was so immense and it didn't deliver on what we wanted to do. The true and tried methods work the best. It's still software based. So I would tend to be more in the mayor's camp of giving it a test run. Don't make a big commitment. See where you are in a year. A year doesn't take a long time. And if you're still comfortable with it, then you keep on moving forward.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
And I think on that note, if you probably look at the fine print, there's probably just a cancellation fee if you cancel earlier than 3 years. But maybe we're giving too many directions here, but see what the difference is in starting with 1 year or starting with 3 years and then including the cancellation fee if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I had a brief time in my previous employer using Paycom, and from an employee standpoint, it was great because I had everything I needed in my phone. I could check, every possible thing that had to do with my employment, insurance, sick days, vacation, 401k, everything was on. I could just look it up on my phone. I didn't have to talk to anybody. It was immediately available. I really liked it, and I think this software is very similar. I don't know where we need to go. I mean, do we know what it costs for 1 year? Is there an escalator, or can we do it for just 1 year and it doesn't lock in the rate? Or do you know, Tanya?
I'd have to go back and ask if we want a shorter than 3 year contract.
Is there a problem with delaying to our next meeting, or do you need an answer tonight?
If we delay to the next meeting, it pushes back the implementation. The plan is to use current year funds for implementation and the first quarter of the payments. So pushing back implementation a little harder from a funding standpoint, unless Hazen or Becky have a different thought about that.
It's really the pleasure of the board. I would be interested in the cancellation clause to see, like, if we could just, but I don't think we can do it tonight. So I think we'll have to wait 2 weeks, bring back something in 2 weeks, what the deal is for one year, or if there's a cancellation clause and we know, be prepared to pay some kind of penalty.
Yeah, it may be more cost effective to Mayor Pro Tem Garner's point. It might be more cost effective to pay the cancellation fee, but I would want a way to get out of it in case we don't like it and it, for whatever reason, doesn't deliver. So I guess Tanya, you come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
And just for one more question, how many other municipalities did you talk to? Because it's not like she just went in blindly and came back with this product and is really just throwing caution to the wind. I mean, I would like to know maybe a little bit more about the research you did, and maybe that would convince some people to trust Tanya's research and ability to flesh out what a good system is.
So we did talk to 3 other municipalities other than Raleigh that were outside of the state of North Carolina. And I've talked to a private company in Charlotte who uses UltiPro. Everyone loves the product. They say it's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. We have seen demo after demo after demo of the product. To your point, Mayor, it functions very much like Paycom. Paycom was the other product that we looked at that entered a bid with us, or gave us a quote. I'm sorry. Their references just weren't as strong, and they were also more expensive than UltiPro. I feel very comfortable with the review that we did of the system. We talked to several vendors several references who have no reason to tell us anything but the truth, and I feel very comfortable that we have fully vetted the system, but it's the pleasure of the board.
I'd like to follow up and ask one more question further with that. Do you know what sort of training it comes with, or if there is any hand holding through the setup process so that you're not relying on, cumbersome technology manuals and...
Yeah, so this product is a train the trainer product. So they will train the individuals at the town on how to use it, and then we will train all of our employees. So the plan is to implement a part of the self-service into our onboarding process, because by getting rid of the cumbersome paper-driven onboarding process we currently have, we will have a lot more time to actually have a meaningful onboarding process that can include things like, how do I find my paycheck? How do I change my benefits? How do I do this stuff? So the initial training will be cumbersome. I'll just be completely honest. We've talked through a couple different scenarios of how to make that the most effective and to work. We've talked with the vendor, and they're willing to train beyond HR and payroll as kind of super users per se, so that there are people in the departments who can help other questions. And if, HR is not available, or if it's easier for them to just ask someone in their department. So we've talked through a couple of different scenarios on the training, but it will be it'll be a train the trainer, and then we will train the majority of our staff.
Mr. Bland, did you have another question?
It seems like I remember we talked about this once before, and when we did, one of the things that came up that stuck in my mind was sort of the argument that this thing would pay for itself, basically because of cost savings as far as employee time. Am I mistaking something something else that we were talking about, or is this the same product?
We talked about the efficiencies that would be created by the system. That would free up the HR specialist and the payroll specialist, not to mention the time saved in the departments to do other tasks. To actually assign $1 to that, I don't have that information, but there will be huge efficiencies across the board with the system for the departments and everyone else. So, like, another example is currently the departments don't have access to the leave balances of their employees. So when they're going through the paper timesheets every week or every 2 weeks, because we still do paper timesheets, they don't know what an employee's leave balance is. So if an employee has 12 hours of vacation on their timesheet, they don't know whether they have that time or not. It's not until it comes to payroll that something might get flagged, and then the payroll comes back to HR. Then we have to track down the department, and especially when you're dealing with police and fire and 24-hour shifts and night shift and people sleeping, payroll days are very interesting. And with the system, everything would be in there. If the employee doesn't have the time, they wouldn't even be allowed to enter it on their timesheet to create a down the line issue. So there's even efficiencies there that go beyond HR and payroll. It's really just a huge benefit to the entire town.
Clearly, if we have HR staff spending an hour and a half to change an address, we needed to find a better way. That's not a good use of anybody's time. Commissioner McCool.
I'd like to just kind of come back off of what Renee, Mayor Pro Tem Garner said. It's not like, she just stuck her hand in a jar of companies and said, we're going to choose this software and see how it goes for the next 3 years. She's put the effort in. She's put the research in. I think I'd like to see this approved tonight. I think the efficiency itself, from everything I've heard, will pay for itself in the long run. And it seems that it also, from Tanya's perspective, the sooner we get this going, the sooner people can get trained, and the sooner we can start reaping the benefits. So I'd personally like to see this approved tonight.
Would that be in the form of a motion?
I can make that motion. Does that suffice, or do I need to reread it? I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town manager to enter in a 3-year contract with UKG Incorporated to provide the town with a human resources management system.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion before we take a vote? Commissioner Urban?
I'm going to stay in the mayor's camp unless he changes his mind. I'd rather in 2 weeks just to figure out some more of these things. The fact is that only one other group other than a private company in North Carolina is using this software concerns me.
Thank you. Commissioner Bland, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say that, we had talked about like maybe doing just 1 year instead of 3 years so we didn't get locked in or get some kind of provision for what it would be to get out of it. I'd like to know that information as well in the event that, hey, this isn't working, this isn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. I would like to, I'm leaning towards, I think this is something that we need. I just want to be sure, it's sort of like all the cars look shiny and wonderful when you're out walking out of the car lot, but there's a big difference in how some of them perform. And
Well, we could somebody could make a substitute motion to implement it for 1 year at a cost not to exceed X.
I'll make that substitute motion if there's a support for that.
Becky, do you have a comment?
I'd just like to offer, just listening to the conversation, just to point out that there is about a 3-month time frame for implementation, which is an extensive commitment by both HR and finance to put in the work to get the system up and running. And then, like any new system, there's going to be a learning curve. And so with the timing of this, as an example, if we go live in July, we will not have our performance evaluations completed until almost the very end of that year. So I'm a little hesitant just thinking about how much you might be able to work out in a year. Obviously, if things went completely sideways, we would know that. But a year does feel like a pretty short time frame, given the sheer amount of work that staff is going to be putting into this and all the training that's going to go into this. And I would be hesitant to only have it for that amount of time, just with everything else that's involved. So I understand it, but I just want to vouch. Tanya has absolutely put in the time and the work with the references. She has exhausted herself going through the vetting process, and over and over again, UltiPro was nothing but outstanding. She couldn't find a negative thing about them. And so, we couldn't say that about any of the others. So we do feel like if there is a product out there that is going to work for us, this is the closest thing we're going to find.
Commissioner Whitley.
Mayor, if Commissioner McCool could maybe just add that clause in there that we have a cancellation clause in the 3-year clause, that if we want to get off, we just pay for that cancellation clause.
Is that something we can do, Charlie? Just want to make sure the legality is there.
Not to exceed $1.
Well,
I was thinking.
Yeah.
You can do a counter offer you can approve it subject to a cancellation clause. And if they want to enter into that, that's fine. If not, then you don't have a contract.
I'll add that when we put in a cancellation clause in the contract.
But
You're muted.
Cancellation for cause or cancellation for just the fact that you don't want it anymore?
Cancellation for cause.
You have to define what the cause is.
That's true, but that would give us a negotiation then with them, and not just an automatic, oh, heck no, we're not going to do all of our training and all of this, that, and the other, and then you just cancel on us. So yeah, that
might be getting paid pretty well. I mean, for the time and effort.
Yeah.
I guess, Becky, maybe I'd understand your hesitancy to do a 1-year contract, because we can sign up for 2 more years or 5 more years after a year. Nothing would preclude us from doing that.
That's true. I think it's just not, I'm not sure that given the cost that UltiPro is going to agree to a simple 1-year contract at the current terms that they've offered us.
And the term, the term is again what per month on this contract?
$50,000 a year.
$50,000 a year. Okay. And
Plus
it's not a monthly
$11,000
fee.
to implement it.
All the more reason we should wait 2 weeks.
I still keep my motion as is with the cancellation clause. Do I need to define that anymore? I know there's some hiccups there.
No,
I mean, if you say, excuse me for one moment, but if he says cancellation for cause, we're going to have to define what the acceptable cause is. And maybe I don't like it's not an acceptable cause.
Clause with an L.
We're saying cause and clause.
Yeah.
Clause.
Clause.
Really mean, right?
Just a cancellation clause, just there.
But it still would be for cause, not just a 30-day cancellation for no reason.
Do we have to define? I guess do we have to define what that cause is?
Well, that would be something that staff would have to negotiate with them over the next week so that we can get it back on the agenda in 2 weeks.
So that means then a motion would be nullified because we don't have that tonight. Correct?
Well, one of the causes could be that it doesn't perform as advertised. It doesn't include all the functionality that they said it did. That's what we're really concerned about, right? We do this.
That's true, but one thought on that is, well, you didn't give us time to train. You put us under a 1-year time limit, and we never got to do the full extension of it. So you're going to get into all kinds of interpretation on what for cause means anyway. I'm not sure what good that does, even on a 3-year contract.
If you can't learn this software in 1 year, it's probably too cumbersome for us to purchase, in my opinion.
Well, that's true.
You can't learn it in a year.
Could we make a subsequent motion for to where we can approve it tonight so they can start working on it to get into their contract and then come back with I guess that won't work either. I'm trying my best. I really am. I just it's a sticky situation.
So I believe we have a motion on the floor from Commissioner McCool.
All that jumbled mess was a motion. I guess.
To authorize the purchase of this software for a 3-year period with a cancellation clause.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That motion had included a not to exceed number, but that number wasn't actually stated. So that would need to be added if you do in fact want to keep that, Mr. McCool.
Let me see if I can find that number.
Thank you, Lori.
I cannot seem to find that number. Can someone remind me of that?
It doesn't exist. I think we're having to stipulate it.
Wouldn't it be?
How much are we willing to pay them if we cancel? Because they'll have to redo it.
Oh, we need that money. Oh.
Yeah, if we cancel, we'll probably have to pay them some fee for canceling.
Does the contract have a cancellation clause in it saying that if we decided to cancel, do we know that?
Well, I didn't bring the contract with me home. So, I don't want to quote something that out of memory from 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Mr. Willie.
With that being said, then why don't we just continue to hold a motion with the cancellation not to exceed, and that Charlie's got it, and then let staff see what it is, and then bring it back to it. That was the amount. Since we don't know amount, no need throwing something out. But if it is in there, we can move forward, and staff can let us know what that is when we come back, and then we could add that.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Could we simplify it and approve it tonight with the stipulation that there is a reasonable cancellation clause written into the contract?
Reasonable is too general.
Would put a lot of pressure, I think, on staff to determine.
Correct.
Is $15,000 reasonable? Is 20 reasonable? this town.
Does anybody have a copy of the contract right now?
I have the draft of the contract. There were still some terms being negotiated based on some feedback received from Charlie.
Is there any cancellation clause in there? I'm sorry if it's not a searchable document. It may not be easy to find.
The wording appears to be that it cannot be canceled during the initial term being for the 3-year period.
Then that kind of nullifies what we're trying to do, unless I'm missing.
No.
Commissioner Miller.
I think we should try to negotiate the contract over the next 2 weeks or so to a 1-year contract. I'm not comfortable voting on an approving manner tonight.
Cool.
I agree. I think there's just too much to flesh out. I tried my best, but I just don't see it happening tonight in a reasonable manner. So I don't know what the process is for rescinding a motion, but I just don't see how it's feasible tonight to get it all fleshed out. There's just too many ifs.
Yeah, you're
There's
right.
2 ways to do that, Commissioner McCool. You can either withdraw your motion and the second party can withdraw the second, or alternatively, somebody can make a motion, a substitute motion to defer it for 2 weeks.
Mr. Urban.
Substitute motion to defer this item for 2 weeks.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Urban, second by Commissioner Miller. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
No.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes. Sorry.
And I vote yes. So that passes 6-1 with Mayor Pro Tem Garner in opposition. Again, I think this software is greatly needed, so hopefully we can come to some sort of resolution quickly. Let's move on to the next agenda item. 12E, consider community development block grant application for North Ames Street sidewalk project. Dana Stujinski.
Good evening, everyone. Jay is bringing up the agenda item, and this is for the community development block grant for North Ames Street. And this sidewalk project will go basically from West Matthew Street to Park Center Drive. And this is the second phase of this community development block grant. Last year, I came before you and talked to you about the first phase of the project, which was basically trying to get money for this project, which was at that time a total of $112,000 that you all did approve, and there was a 5% match for that. And with that money, we have done completed the environmental document, and tomorrow we'll be getting all the requests for qualifications for the design work and engineering of the sidewalk. In addition, we will also be doing right-of-way and easement acquisitions with those dollars that we got last year. And so the community development block grant phase 2, we are going to be applying now for that project, and under the direction of Central Line and Regional Council, who administers the program, wants us to apply for that second round, which would come available starting in July of 2021. And so this second phase is a total of $234,100, and that would allow us to construct the sidewalk, curb gutter, and drainage pipes for this project. Again, we would be doing a 5% match, but ultimately the total cost for this part of the project would be about $29,000, and that's due to some asphalt work that we would need to get done, about $18,000 of asphalt work for that piece of roadway, because that's not covered under the community development block grant. This segment of sidewalk was chosen because there's a very limited amount of geography that the community development block grants are allowed to be used. It's according to the census tract and the poverty rate and certain indicators. So we are limited to what census blocks we could choose from. And then when we realized that it was this census block, we found a project that would that we needed and that would qualify. And that's how we went about selecting this project in particular. So at the bottom of the memo, you'll see that we are asking for you all to allow us to apply for the second phase of Community Development Block Grant for fiscal year 2022. For the amount would be $234,100, $5,100 would be community development block grant, and the town would be responsible for the $29,000 of the expenditures, the rest of the expenditures. I know that was a quick overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions for Dana? Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. Dana, I haven't seen any petitions come forward about this area lately. If this particular block is going to be developed, is there a reason that the developer isn't putting in their own sidewalk?
This piece of stretch is not been eyed for development. We do have the piece of the road of North Ames on the other side of West Matthew Street that has, that is the old, I don't know what it was in its prior life, some sort of warehouse that was potentially, it's still on track to be redeveloped. I checked with Jay this morning, and it is in the Mecklenburg permitting system. And so that's the section that's on the other side of West Matthew Street. And then there is a section of roadway, a section of sidewalk that has been developed with the projects on the Park Center Drive project. So this is a missing piece that, and Bo owns this, Bo Halsley owns this piece of land, and, he has, he doesn't seem to have any plans to redevelop anytime soon. And this is a missing link of sidewalk that, and we're also, we're not widening the road, but we're widening enough to get some parking in there. So thank you, Jay. So Jay is showing you that section of sidewalk. So, the issue here is really, we have a lot of truck traffic going back into Matthews Building Supply. And as this area becomes more residential, there's this conflict of walkers in the middle of the street and then these large trucks coming through, and they use North Ames Street to come through to get supplies. And it's just it's an unsafe environment. And when we realized we had an opportunity to go after grant money, and we literally had a very small geography to choose from, we picked this project as the in terms of safety, right? Public Works, we're probably safety first. That is our battle cry. And so this we thought was, definitely something that we wanted to address.
Dana, if I can follow up, $234,000 sounds like a very large number for sidewalk, curb, and gutter. Is it the sewage and stormwater runoff, digging the drainage pipes that's the most costly?
I'm going to see if Susan wants to answer that question. I don't know if we can bring her up, Lori, but Susan and Eric did all the cost estimate. Oh, she texted me and she said yes. So that is the main cost. Thank you.
Mr. Bland.
Isn't this exactly where that, we'll talk about putting in sidewalk and curb and guttering, exactly where the rail line's going to come right across that? Isn't that the exact same spot?
So this is on the rail would, in theory, Silver Line would come up West Matthew Street, but this is on, I don't know if Jay, if you want to flash back to that map, this is on the section of North Ames Street that's on the other, that is adjacent to it. It wouldn't come through it. So West Matthew Street is where the alignment, the rail alignment would come through, and then North Ames Street, when that on that side of it would get the sidewalk treatment. So I don't think there would be a conflict.
It's a good question, Mr. Bland.
Hazen, do you have a comment?
I do want to, because Commissioner Miller has been here a long time. This portion of North Ames has been something that's been on our radar, along with West Charles Street, as how do we improve it? And we've never been able to come up with the money. And I think Dana and Susan and CJ, to their credit, have started to figure out a way to nibble away at this. We're talking about the north side of Ames Street, but it's going to widen it out to some extent on the north side. It's not going to be a full width road, because on the south side, where you have at least 3, maybe 4 houses, that's still going to look like it looks like today. But again, we're moving the ball forward. Whenever we do the other side, or developer does the other side, it's going to be cheaper, and we're going to be closer to having a full width road.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
This is on the side with the Halsey property?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or motions? Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
I think this is a good opportunity for anybody who received maybe campaign donations from the Halsey family to come forward for transparency's sake, before we take a vote on improving their property.
What does that have to do with anything? We're talking about a CDBG block grant that helps us make infrastructure improvements. What's that got to do with the Halsey personal property? Charlie, you want to talk about that?
I made a suggestion for transparency, and it was just simply that. We had a big discussion about electric vehicles and, putting money into that. So I just wanted to make a suggestion that.
Well, I think that's fair. Let me ask another question. I do want to make a disclosure, because the Halseys have been very close friends of mine for 30, 40 years. And Pete Halsey was a close friend and a great client of my law firms. And Bo Halsey is a current client as well. And we have a long-term relationship with them, but I don't think it would affect in any way, shape, or form how I would look at doing that. But I'll be happy to disclose that. I don't think he gets any money, but he may have.
I was just saying,
a lot of fees over the years. How about that?
I think when we're forthright with information like that, it enhances public opinion and trust. So I appreciate you saying that.
Sure.
But Mr. Miller, you have a comment?
I have a question. At the bottom of page 1, it refers to an estimated cost of $234,100. At the top of page 2, it says town costs $12,300 this year and town costs $29,000 next year in 22. I just want some clarification on that. I'm willing to spend $41,000 if that's what it is, but not 234.
If you want to bring up the board memo again, Jay, we can scroll down to the spreadsheet. I'm sorry if that was confusing for anyone. And I'll show the spreadsheet for the entire cost of the project. Thank you, Jay. So if you look at the bottom, all the way at the bottom in green, you'll see the total project cost. And so that's the total project cost, including all the matches. So the total town commitment is that $41,300. We divided up into 2 phases. So last year we did a phase that was the fiscal year 2021 phase, where the estimated town cost was $12,300. That was previously approved. So that's why we worded this one for this fiscal year, for the grant fiscal year 2022, being the $29,000 for the town. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if the town only has to pay the $41,300, I could. That's a pill I could swallow.
Any other questions or comments or motions?
I'll make a motion. We authorize staff to submit a request to the Mecklenburg County Community Development Block Grant for fiscal year 2022 for funding the construction phase of the North Ames Street Sidewalk Project in the amount of $234,100, which would encompass CDBG grants of about $205,100, and the town would then pay about $29,000.
I'll second that.
So the 29,000 is for this fiscal year, Dana?
This $29,000 would be for fiscal year 2022. So the grant would start July of this year.
The total cost of the town's 40-some thousand.
41,200 or something like that for over the 2 years.
So we need to clarify that in the motion.
41,300 over 2 years.
I'll second it.
Any further comment?
I want to hear what Charlie had to say about the last little diatribe, because let me be very perfectly clear about this. I think it wasn't about an act of transparency. It was a direct point being made to some of these commissioners. And I will tell you, like Commissioner Bland, I have a relationship with Bo Halsey. I have a relationship with a lot of people in this town, whether directly or indirectly. And if we're going to go down this path of trying to figure out all these connections and whatever, I might as well just resign as commissioner, because I'm connected with a lot of good people in this town. And if we're going to figure out this path of transparency every time, it's getting ridiculous. I don't like the insinuation that this is all under the guise of transparency. Charlie, can you please follow up on that discussion?
Well, a CDBG block grant is based on a census tract entitlement. You have to find where in that census tract there is a public infrastructure need. It helps fund that public infrastructure. But any improvement to the public infrastructure anywhere in the town is an improvement to all the citizens within the town. What impact it may have on properties around is not the consideration, because any improvement to a street improves the entire town's ability to drive or to walk along those improvements. So this is not done for the benefit of any individual, but I understand the transparency issue comment, but that really is not pertinent to a CDBG, but particularly, I don't believe. That's a census tract type entitlement.
Thank you, Charlie.
Any further comment before we call for the vote?
Nope.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from Commissioner Whitley. Mr. Bland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Move on to agenda item 12F, consider ordinance revision to allow sport bow and arrow use by permit, from Chief Pennington.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So I'm here before you today to request an amendment to a recent ordinance amendment we made in January of 2019 in reference to discharge of firearms in the town. Just as a little bit of back history for you, as I said, January 2019, we did amend this ordinance to prohibit all discharge of firearms inside the town limits, and this included bow and arrows and crossbows, except inside of a licensed shooting gallery. So in my opinion, I do think that this previous ordinance may have had an unintended consequence on some members of our community. And I was contacted by James Hughes of Carmel Christian School, who was seeking guidance on continuing an archery program that he has been leading in the school for many years. And the guidance was whether or not he was able to shoot the bows and arrows with the kids inside the school or outside the school under the ordinance. And after some consultation with Charlie, we believe that this does have some restrictions in that. So I am proposing a amendment to this 130.03 discharge of a firearm that will allow for instructional and or tournament archery ranges both inside and outside by permit only.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Whitley?
Chief, thank you. You know, we've had this discussion for the last 5 years or 6 years about these bowls, and I'm glad to see we're getting some verbiage in there that restrict those bowls. But this has been come up about every year since I've been on this board, and I'm glad to see that, and I'm in favor. And I'll make a motion that we consider the ordinance revised or allowing sports bow and arrow used by the permit that the chief has presented to us tonight.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and just for clarification, Chief, and you and I discussed this earlier in the week, but this is not going to allow somebody to discharge a bow in their quarter-acre suburban backyard, correct?
That's correct. This is for tournament or instructional use only.
And it wouldn't, the discharged arrow wouldn't end up in a deer.
That's correct.
Very good. You know, we had a video of a deer walking around town with an arrow sticking out of its behind, so I certainly don't want to see that. So I'm in favor of this. I think it makes good sense. It's a good sport for our kids to participate in. Teaches teamwork and all that good stuff. So as long as it's done in a responsible way, I'm in favor of it. So we had a motion from Commissioner Whitley. Did somebody second that?
I did.
Okay, Commissioner Bland, we'll take a roll call vote if there's no further discussion. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
I'm leaning on no, but I'll go ahead and say yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And I think Commissioner Miller, you and I share some of the same concerns, but again, as long as they're not, discharging this in people's backyards where it's very dense, if they're doing it in a responsible way, it should be safe. So that passes unanimously. Thank you, Clark. Move on to agenda item 12G, again with Chief Pennington, review the 2020 crime statistics.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board of Commissioners. So I am going to go over a PowerPoint, and Jay, I'm going to go ahead and take control if you don't mind when I bring this up. So I do want to cover and go through our 2020 crime stats. And obviously this is very dense information. I understand it's numbers, and I've lived these numbers for the last 12 months. So if and when I start to get maybe into an area that is unclear, I do ask that you just speak up. I may not be able to see you on the screen to ask clarifying questions. I will do my best to try to answer those, but I may not see you once I start sharing my screen. So if you have a question, please speak up. So I'm going to try this. Here we go. All right, can we see, I'm going to expand it. Can we see the crime stats?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm not going to change this over. We'll just leave it this way. If you guys can see that, it might help out a little bit anyways with seeing some of the notes. So when we deal in crime stats, just as an overview of where we sit. So the crime stats are what we use to kind of gauge whether or not we are keeping in line with our current mission statement. And inside of our mission statement, we talk about promoting a safe community and preventing crime. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, the numbers are a significant way for us to look at how our officers are doing, how crime is impacting our community, and then ultimately how much that crime also impacts the fear of crime. And when we do this, we look at many different data sets, if you will, to look at whether or not we're doing our job efficiently and effectively, and we're treating people fairly and with respect. But these crime stats give us a better way of kind of showing whether or not we're meeting those goals. So the way that we look at crime stats and the way that we kind of gauge it, as of 2018, North Carolina moved to a NIBR system where we were originally under what we call the UCR system. The UCR was a Uniform Crime Reports, where we would look at a series of index crimes, and we're going to go over those here shortly. But we moved to a NIBR system, which is a lot more comprehensive. It's a lot more of an overview on the victims, so that we're not only tracking the highest crime committed, but we're tracking all crimes that might be committed, which ultimately does impact the way that we show our numbers. So what I'm going to go over tonight is I'm going to show you guys a little bit through our Group A, which is 22 different categories of crimes and 46 specific crimes inside those categories. I am going to kind of weed it down just a little bit. We're not going to go over every one of the 22 categories or the 46 specific crimes, but I'm going to try to show you guys a highlight, or at least a snapshot of some of the things that we're looking at coming out of 2020 and into 2021. Just so you guys understand, the other side of this is we do look at what's called a Group B offense category. That Group B offense category, we don't track the number of crimes reported. That section of crime is only captured based on the number of arrests performed, or the number of people charged with that specific crime. So those are more of your I don't want to call them lesser crimes, because when you're a victim of one of those crimes, it's obviously the most significant thing that's happened to you at that time. But we're talking about crimes like drug possession or vandalism, those type of things. So it's a lesser type crime, if you will, in our category B. So we specifically focus on our Group A and our index crime. Just to kind of go over, 2020, we understand, is kind of an outlier. There's been a lot of different things happen in 2020. It seems like, forever ago that we had the tornado that hit Matthews, but we've got to remember that we've had so many significant issues inside of our town this year that does impact crime. It impacts the ability of the officers to investigate and, more importantly, to prevent crime. But we've also had COVID-19. COVID-19, we started to see the onset of the impact somewhere around March 22nd in the town of Matthews. Again, looking at that beginning of the stay-at-home order. There's other pressures that have impacted crime this year, and some of it is our vacancies, 10% of our sworn allocation, right? We've talked about in many different other conversations what we call relief factors, and how we're able to provide enough time for officers to recharge, take time off, get additional training, and those type of things. That relief factor has really not been there. And the amount of officers we've had on the street to effectively impact those crimes has also been a little waning. So in kind of considering where we go and how we look at crimes because of the anomaly of 2020, I'm going to kind of go over two different sets of numbers. The first set of numbers I want to go over is the comparison between 2020 and 2019. On a given year, any given year, those comparison of numbers are what we kind of go off of. What's our change this year versus what our change was last year? The problem or the concern with this part of it is because 2020 had the anomaly of COVID-19, which impacted us significantly in some areas, like violent crime, and it impacted us significantly in other areas. For example, let's say traffic crashes, right? Because we had a reduced number of traffic on the streets. But we're going to look at those two different areas. The first one, like I said, is the comparison of 2019 to 2020. And then the second one we're going to look at is a comparison of a 5-year average. That's just to give us a more data, more information to determine how we're doing or what areas we really need to improve on. So if you look at the 5-year average, we saw a 4% reduction of crime over the 5-year average. And when I say that, I'm talking about Group A offenses, those 22 categories, 46 different crime sets. We saw an overall reduction. So we saw a reduction between this year and last year of 9%. And looking at the 5-year snapshot, we saw a 4% reduction. What I'll do is I'll try to explain to you, or at least lay out for you, I should say, this area over here, we're talking arson and assault in the white color. That is the category and also the crime. But what you're seeing in the gray are the individual crimes under that category of assault. Arson is a category in and of itself and a crime in and of itself. So we track that number between last year and this year, and then we try to look at the 5-year average. And then when you look at assault, we also track aggravated, simple, and intimidation. Aggravated assault, for our definition under NIBRS, is any assault that caused or could have caused serious bodily injury to the victim. So what you're seeing there, and what I'm pointing out is, and it's going to come a little more clear when we talk about violent crime, is aggravated assault is up this year, just for whatever reasons those might be. And we can drill down into those and have that conversation if we need to. It is down over the 5-year average. Now, I will say that our violent crime rate, and I've already mentioned it now, our violent crime rate is up in the town this year. That when you look at numbers of 55 to 59 and an increase of 4 crimes, and then you start to see an increase of 9%, or in this particular example, you're looking at an increase from 27 from 31, or from 27 to 31, you're 13% over the 5-year average. So it's got to correlate a little bit, but it doesn't give me a whole lot of alarm, other than we'll talk about the impact it's having on staff and the way that we're dealing with these different things. Another area that we look at significantly is our burglary and breaking and enterings. Our burglary and breaking and enterings between last year and this year is up by 1. That is a little different than what we're seeing in the region. CMPD, for example, did see a reduction in their burglaries. We saw an increase, whether that is because of our commercial and some of our construction site burglaries that we've had series and patterns in. That might be part of it, but we did see an increase this year. But we did also see an increase of 4% over the 5-year average. Fraud offenses. Fraud offenses are a significant concern for the town of Matthews. We do see a significant number of fraud offenses each and every year. Again, partially due because of the number of retail establishments that we have in our town. But we did see a decrease between last year and this year. And we saw an overall decrease from the 5-year average. Again, some of our businesses have been closed for a period of time, so that may have helped reduce some of those numbers. Homicides. Homicides are always a significant or a important topic to talk about, and I know that it's always one that gets a lot of I don't know, pressure or press, if you will. We did have a significant increase in homicides this year. The homicide increase between 19 to 20 is from 3 to 5, which is a 67% increase, and an overall 300% increase, if you will, from our 5-year average of 1. These homicides, if you notice, they go down as homicide offenses. We technically had 4 homicides in the town of Matthews this year, with 1 attempted, and that obviously still counts as a 5th homicide. Now, I will tell you, some of the hard work done by our detectives in and out of our CID is all of our homicides were solved this year, either by arrest or by closure. And I mean by that is we had 1 homicide-suicide and an arson, which went against both of our numbers there. But our detectives were working hard. I think for some of the public that might be listening to this presentation, the homicides that we have observed in Matthews, they are not homicides being committed like random acts or drive-by shootings. All of our homicides in the town of Matthews that we cleared were committed by known parties or intimate partner violence, if you will, in some of the cases, but it still is an area that we are significantly concerned about. It's the most heinous crime that can occur to a person and a family, and it's something that we want to continue to work on.
Chief, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This is Jeff. I have a question about aggravated assault. You define that as physical harm. I'm picturing a pistol whipping, a knife, a fist fight, violent threats, or a physical altercation. On some of the properties I manage, I get police reports, and it says non-aggravated assault. Is that a verbal threat? Give me your wallet. How do you define non-aggravated assault?
So non-aggravated assault is any assault that does not include serious bodily injury or the possibility for serious bodily injury. So, for example, if I were to fire a gun at somebody and miss, that's still an aggravated assault. The act in and of itself could cause serious bodily injury. Yeah. A push or a shove is not going to cause serious bodily injury. That is a non-aggravated assault. However, if I end up stomping somebody with my boot and cause facial fractures, now we're talking about an aggravated assault.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions as I move forward? All right, so the next category that we can kind of review, and I know this is a lot of dense information, and again, if any of the terms are foreign, please stop me and I will go back and try to further explain them. I did provide you guys with the entire total report from the police department on all of our Group A and Group B offenses, as well as some of the data I'm going to cover on our arrests and our calls for service. But one area that I'll continue to follow up on here is theft from motor vehicles, which We did see a reduction this year in 14%, I should say, over last year, and an overall 13% reduction in the 5-year average. This, and the reason I bring this to your attention, this is one area that the town of Matthews does have a significant issue in, and we have been trying to focus a lot of our efforts in our proactive enforcement to try to prevent crime. And we'll talk about prevention versus investigation, but ultimately the duty and the responsibility of the police department is to prevent crime, right? That is what all the way back to the early 1900s when law enforcement was established, and what our focus was. Our focus is to prevent. And a lot of our strategies moving forward have been to try to prevent crime in the town of Matthews. And this has been one area that we've been focusing our education, prevention, and enforcement efforts in communicating with a lot of our apartment complexes and a lot of our business owners and a lot of our residents to make sure that they're removing items from their cars, taking it out of sight, and locking it to try to prevent. So we have seen some positives there. We did see an increase this year in theft of motor vehicle parts. And you talk about that, some people get tires stolen, right? There's really a harder to educate in not getting those type of motor vehicle parts stolen. But we've also had an increase in catalytic converter thefts this year. And that's not just local to Matthews. The entire region has seen a catalytic converter theft ring happening in and out of, or in and around the Mecklenburg County area. So we did see an increase there. Robbery, another area of concern for me. Robbery, in my opinion, is another one of those heinous crimes that when an individual has the guts to pull a gun or threaten somebody with bodily harm to take a piece of property from them, which is defined as taking something of value from somebody by force or threat of force. We have seen an increase this year in our robbery offenses, which does go towards our overall violent crime increase. So that's kind of a quick overview of how we look at what we call the Group A and the Group B. We really focused on the Group A. But to kind of give you apples to apples and make sure we're comparing crime data as far back as we can go, I told you we switched to NIBRS in the state of North Carolina in 2018. It's actually a mandatory switch, I believe, in 2022 for all agencies to be in the NIBRS compliance. We still want to look at what it was or what our index crimes look like for Part 1 offenses. And when we talk about Part 1 offenses and what we've consistently over the last 20 years reported to the FBI as murder, rape, robbery, ag assault, burglary, larceny or theft, and motor vehicle theft and arson. So those 8 offenses make up what we call our Part 1 or our index offenses, and those are broken down into violent property offenses. Overall, we saw a 3% reduction in our total Part 1 index offenses for this year. So if you look at the overall snapshot of the town of Matthews, crime is down 3%, but we did see a 7% above average crime index for Matthews. Let's break this down a little bit. These are all of the crime indexes, and this is really the entire slide for the Part 1 crime indexes. If you notice, in 2020, we had a total of 59 violent offenses, which is a increase over last year's violent offenses of 54. Our overall 5-year average was 55. So we're seeing this significant increase in my opinion, of areas that we need to continue to work on. What we have seen, though, is the reduction in the number of property crimes that we've seen in the town of Matthews. So property crimes have gone down, if you compare this year to last year, by 4%, but it's an overall increase of 7% over the 5-year snapshot. That just means, and if you look at areas in this region, I should say, and I have crime stats for Charlotte-Mecklenburg, there are some areas of our crime that are kind of on the same path as CMPD, and then there's areas of our crime that are unique to Matthews, and that CMPD might have saw a decrease, or they might have seen an increase, and we saw a decrease. But overall, for index offenses, we saw a 3% reduction from 2019, but of a 5-year average, we're continuing to see the uptick in that average. Better way to look at it, I'm a real visual person. I like to kind of see these things in bar graphs. So this gives you a little better understanding, or at least a visual, of how our Part 1 index offenses have been reported going back to 2015. So we've seen this little bit of a undulation, if you will. We were hoping to see a further reduction due to COVID, but unfortunately, I think with some of the financial concerns that people are having and the frustrations they might be feeling based on the economic downturn, we're seeing obviously something that we need to be concerned, but something that we're willing to work with. Another part of this that I think is indicative of what we're seeing from the rest of the area police departments is our arrest numbers are down. Now, I say they're down compared to last year. They're ultimately up compared to the 5-year average, obviously other than 2015. But our arrest numbers are down. COVID, I think, impacted that a little bit in the way that a lot of the criminal justice system was working and the way that we kind of operate in trying to not arrest, if you will, but they are down. Other part of this, and since I've been here, I've focused on traffic crashes. I wish I could say this is going to be our norm. Unfortunately, I think with COVID, this is going to be a kind of an outlier. We have seen an overall reduction in traffic crashes in the town of Matthews between last year and this year of 30%. Overall, in the 5-year average, 29%. So I know that we were starting to see a reduction based on our traffic crash initiatives to try to reduce speeding, reduce inattentive driving, reduce individuals, following too closely. I would love to say this was as a result of that, but I do want to be fair and recognize that COVID may have helped us in this area. Again, just another way of looking at our traffic crashes and the way that this year is snapping out with the last 5 years. The last part of this I want to talk about, because I do think it's a significant way or a significant consideration in the way we're policing and kind of moving forward of how we are anticipating our next 5 or 3 to 5 year strategic management plan working out. When you look at this, we look at calls for service. We want to know how many calls for service are generated in the town of Matthews. Calls for service, just for an overview, is really defined as any number or anything that an officer is doing that takes up his time or his or her time. So what an individual gets out on a traffic stop, pulls a traffic stop on somebody speeding, that is considered a call for service. If he is sent to a robbery complaint, that is a call for service. If he's directed to work an area of the town because based on data collection and data analytics or our analysis of that data says that there is a possibility of this crime occurring in this region of the town during these time frames, he's going to start a call for service in that particular region. So what you're seeing in these calls for service generated numbers is we saw a 5% reduction in overall calls for service generated by the public, but we saw a 31% increase of your officers out there proactively working the areas of the town that need to help to have some level of coverage. And that is also our way to proactively track what the officers are doing and making sure that they're doing what we expect them to be doing. I will also say that a proactive call for service does take a significant more amount of time, if you will, to deal with, and it does a reactive call for service. If an individual calls an officer and says, my car got broken into last night, it may be one call for service that the officer shows up, takes him 15 minutes to speak to the victim, collect any information or evidence, and write maybe another 10 minutes or 15 minutes to write the report, or 20 minutes, whatever it is. But for every one of those crimes, we're going to see anywhere from 5 to 10 proactive checks in that area to ensure that we are taking a proactive, preventative approach to policing rather than a reactive approach, just heading to the calls, if you will, right? We don't like to compare ourselves to firemen, but that's really what we do. We want to be proactive and stop that crime ahead of time rather than having to reactively respond. So it does take a lot of staffing concerns or a lot of staffing hours and a lot of increase in the way that we do things. So if you'll look here, this is our calls for service that we've presented or that we've handled over the last, 6 years total. So the 5 years previous and this year. What I do want to point out is for the 3 years prior to my arrival here in 2018, we were on a steady incline, and that was a lot because of the calls for service citizen generated and the average number that we were doing. What we're starting to see now is a proactive police department that's out really embracing and kind of taking on this preventative approach to policing and trying to proactively go out in our communities, identify where the crime is at, and ultimately stop it, right? Because that's again our first focus is that preventative effort. We don't like to compare it to every other police department, but as I told you, I've looked at some of the stats from the other police departments, and I am seeing, at least from CMPD, our numbers in areas that they were seeing a reduction, we were seeing a reduction. In the areas they're seeing an increase, we're also seeing an increase. And I know a lot of that is because of the geographic area that we police in the area southeast of Charlotte. So I will stop my screen. And those of you, I know you guys have a copy of the PowerPoint. You do have a copy of the final document. So if there's questions, I'll take those.
Chief, I'd just like to say that I'm a member of an engineering society whose motto is prevention rather than cure. And it seems like that's being more proactive and less reactive seems like a really smart way to do police work here in Matthews, and we're very appreciative of it. Are there any comments or questions for Chief Pennington? Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. Chief, I wanted to compliment you and Hazen on your message boards. Going back to Halloween and Christmas time and the most recent subliminal messages, I've had a number of people, first of all, they're spun very positive and humorous. And I've had a number of people tell me that it seems like Matthews doesn't endorse punitive behavior. They want to be neighborly and friendly and spin it in a positive way. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they sometimes giggle, speeding bad, whatever the good was, I don't remember, but it's a good positive message on those boards that you've been putting out, and you should be aware of that.
Thank you, sir. And if I could just kind of give some accolades to Sergeant Nelson and Captain Terrell. They're really pushing those message boards, and you've heard me say it a lot since I've been here. We are looking for voluntary compliance. I really believe that the majority of people want to comply, but they get wrapped up in maybe the music that they're listening to and not paying attention to their speed. And those subtle reminders is a good way to bring people back to reality and say, that's right, I've got to pay attention. I've got to focus. So I appreciate that. I have heard a lot of positive comments about our boards, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yes, sir.
That strobe light on more than one occasion on Fullwood has caused me to take my foot off my accelerator. I can assure you that'll jolt you to remind you to go 35 on Fullwood. Other comments or questions? I don't see any. Just a lot of thumbs up. Commissioner Whitley.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Chief. And I'm looking at your numbers, and when we look at numbers and you see a lot of crime and stuff only go up by 2 or murders by 3, that's not to say a lot. I know it picks the number up, but when you don't have 1 murder of a year and then have 3 the next year, it makes a difference. But it just proved that Matthews still is a good, safe place to live. And thank you, Chief, for all you do.
Can I just say one more comment, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
The men and women that are in this police department are some of the hardest working men and women I've ever met. I am asking a lot of them. The expectation that has been set in this organization to be proactive and preventative, it doesn't come without a lot of concern on their part, right? Because we are asking so much more of them, and looking at where we're going to be going with this budget process, and I know that things will be discussed in the next few months. These men and women are extremely hardworking individuals, and they deserve every bit of the positive portions that we've been moving in, and they are as equally committed to making sure that those areas that we've seen increases in our violent crime, for example, are going to be brought down. So I do want to give them some positive accolades.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think on behalf of the entire board, thank you. We recognize we have an awesome police force, an awesome police chief, and we thank you for all you do for the town.
Thank you.
Not easy, for sure. Let's move on to agenda item 12H, consider 2021 shred event. And I know Corey's going to present this, but Commissioner Miller, you were one of the guys suggesting this, correct?
That's accurate. The chamber did it a few or maybe more than a few years back, but then it fell off the radar, and I wanted to bring it back. I don't think it's a forever event as we go more and more digitally, but as as we all know, the retirement community may want to get rid of some paper in the near future, and it's a good service to our citizens. Thank you.
Corey, the floor is yours, sir.
Actually, we've got Mr. Scott Rawls. I believe he's still around, who's going to just sort of talk through the shred event.
Okay, Scott?
Park and Rec is always last. I don't know why that is.
You got to show them some love sometime.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As stated, there have just been some questions about this free shred event, and so I'm just here to provide some additional details and answer any questions that you may have. So in the past, the shredding was offered during our Earth Day event. When Earth Day was held in Stumptown Park, the box truck would pull up along Trade Street, and citizens could bring their paper to be shredded there at that event. We've since then kind of evolved Earth Day, and we've moved it to Squirrel Lake Park, and it's just not feasible to have a shredding box truck in Squirrel Lake Park. It's just too tight down there. And we've also turned it into more of a nature oriented event. So it just didn't pair well. And then in 2019, since Earth Day did change, we decided to offer the shred event as a standalone event. And we held it in the bus parking lot of Matthews Elementary School, right behind the community center. And we had 250 vehicles come through, which we considered to be successful. And so we weren't able to hold the event last year. We had plans for it. It was on the schedule, but that was right as things started shutting down with COVID, and CMS didn't allow us to use the parking lot. And in general, we just didn't feel safe offering an event at that point. So this year, we've just looked into some details. Mr. Miller has discussed with the same company that we used in 2019 and we had contracted in 2020. And the fee for them was $400 for the last 2 years. And this year they said, in order to make it a safe event and basically bring in additional staff and be prepared to host this event during COVID, they were going to raise their price to $800. And then the only other fee that the town sees is we pay $60 to rent the bus lot at Matthews Elementary School. And the one note I wanted to make is we do have to apply to use the bus lot at Matthews Elementary School, so there's no guarantee. I do believe at this time they have resumed allowing community use of their facilities, and so it's definitely a possibility to get that lot. And there are potential other locations if we need to look into it. It seems to be that April 10th is probably the best bet. They had 2 dates available. It was that one and April 24th. April 24th, Stallings is offering a shred event, and so we don't feel it's necessary to offer one on that day. And just our recommended action is we're fine hosting this event this year as long as we can do it safely. In order to do that, we do need that extra $400 since we only budgeted for the initial $400.
All right. Thank you, Scott. When we reviewed this item during our agenda review this week, in keeping with my theme, is this something that town should be doing or should be providing this service? I discussed it a little with Becky, and she mentioned, I believe, Becky, in your 2 previous towns where you worked, they were offered, and we just heard from Scott that they were also, did you say offered in Mint Hill, I think, in a similar time frame. And I can say, as one who has had my identity stolen from probably not shredding some stuff that I should have, it is a nice service to the community to be able to safely get rid of a lot of material. Becky, did you want to comment on the events you partook in the past?
Sure. My history with shred events goes back to 2007 or 2008. Implemented the first one, and they actually charged us by the pound. The shredding company did. So seeing a flat rate is really a bargain. If I remember correctly, our bill was $900 back in 2007 or 8. So this is a good deal by that standard. But in all the localities that have worked, they tend to be always popular. They're relatively low cost, and it's a nice way to make sure that the materials are diverted from the waste stream while also keeping the information secure by having it officially shredded, and folks can feel really good about that. So it feels like a low cost for a nice return for the community.
So are there any other questions or comments on this? Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. My last comment is if there's any stumbling with Matthews Elementary School, we could consider Town Hall back parking lot where they loop around past the Chamber of Commerce and come around, if that's a stumbling block at all. I just think it would be a very good event annual around the tax season. Thank you.
That almost sounded like a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the document shredding event for April based on the memo by Scott Rawls and the outline that we've provided at the cost of $800 to the town of Matthews.
We have a second.
Second.
Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Bland, second. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. And Scott, my garden plot check is in the mail. Wink, wink.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Right. Thanks, Scott. Thank you, Corey. Let's move on to item 13, the mayor's report. I have a couple quick items. I know it's a late night. One thing I've discussed recently with Commissioner Miller, and I think he's brought up in our meetings, is a desire to have some sort of official cleanup of the Greenway. And we talked about it this past week. And I think it's something that we might want to do in conjunction with Earth Day, which is on April 22nd this year, but we could do it anytime. And what Jeff and I discussed was the possibility of having it as a volunteer event. I know the Rotary does something similar to this, but have it as a volunteer event with some help from the town, a few staff members, and maybe using the gator or whatever to walk up and down and load up the bags. Or Hazen, as you and I discussed, maybe volunteers just fill the orange bags up and set them alongside the Greenway, and then staff will pick them up. Town staff would pick them up later in the week or something. But is that kind of what you had in mind, Jeff?
I think it may require, my focus is not on Gatorade bottles and beer cans so much, but is on large logs that would need to be loaded onto a trailer behind the gator. And I'm not talking about logs in a natural area. I'm talking about logs within 15, 20 feet of a creek, of flood zone where a tree fell and it's right there where it will obstruct a bridge downstream in a month or two. That's so the answer is yes, plus a trailer behind the gator.
So I know we've discussed this, and there was some concern about possibly removing natural areas, and I agree with Commissioner Miller. If the debris is right along the creek, you know, I'm sitting in my office right now, although you can't tell, I'm not really on daytime on Trade Street. The creek that runs adjacent to my backyard floods very regularly, including today. It flooded today. So if there's debris within a few feet or whatever of the creek, it's gonna be picked up and moved downstream and cause further damage. So if we could have some kind of stuff that's right along the creekway to remove that or move it out of the way so that it doesn't get picked up by water when it floods. Mm-hmm. I think for tonight, I would like to get a vote to agree to, endorse this effort. Hazen, or what am I missing as far as staff participation?
Well, I guess I think we owe it to, so I think if the board wants to endorse Greenway cleanup, we can go full force. We can figure out a way, either like the next Monday, staff comes through and picks it up. I think the key is going to be what's the expectation and making it clear what gets cleaned up. I mean, I do believe in habitats. Some of these are important habitats. Is a potential negative effect whatever debris going downstream. You know, we don't need in my opinion, we don't need a manicured greenway. So I think we got to be clear on what, if we get volunteers, what do we expect them to pick up, right? And roll to the side, and then I guess public works staff would do the final collection. But it could become a very big job if we're not careful. Like there's a lot of logs down. I mean, there's stuff tipping over the creek all the time. It's kind of a dynamic environment, really.
Don't we know it, right, Commissioner Miller? Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Not sure I would be entirely comfortable supporting this without input from Mecklenburg County or possibly the Carolina Trailblazers, or an organization that does this regularly, to better understand the role of some of these fallen trees, what's likely to be carried downstream, what is better left in place. You know, I mean, sometimes the fallen trees are holding up stream banks from erosion. So I think while the intent is clear that there can be better management, I would like to have a little more input from people who are more knowledgeable in keeping natural areas natural.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Hazen, to the best of my knowledge, the Greenway was dedicated in 2011. Although we started fighting for it, I started fighting for it officially in 2005. I only remember one Greenway cleanup of logs, and that was when the church came through on a volunteer day with a trailer like I'm describing. Now, I know that Rotary comes through and other groups have come through, but they are picking up trash bags and 7-Up bottles and tires. The flooding on the Greenway is caused, or rather compounded, by what wedges under the bridges. The bridges cannot be more than 30 inches above the water level, so that you don't need railings, and it leaves about 12 to 18 inches of airspace above the water level till you hit concrete. My bridge was clogged entirely, and they pulled out trunks of trees, they pulled out stumps, they pulled out a baby carriage, they pulled out all sorts of stuff. The basic maintenance. And so my point is, it's been done once in the 10 years since it was dedicated. I don't think it would take more than 6 hours of 6 guys and a gator and a trailer to pick up large logs that create log jams. They float downstream and they wedge between trees, or they go under a bridge and cause more and more debris. And so I think it's a needed function. I'm not talking about natural areas for wildlife. I'm just talking about stuff that when it floods will be lifted and floated further downstream.
Well, we have, we're talking about somewhere around Earth Day, April 22nd, we have some additional time if we want to dial in more closely what exactly we're going to be removing. I'm not sure. I mean, Mayor Pro Tem Garner, who are you talking about? I mean, the Trailblazers are making bicycle paths, right?
Carolina Thread Trail, that's my guess.
Oh, Thread Trail, okay.
Right. I mean, there are groups that are better educated on ecology than I am, and the roles that fallen trees play in our ecosystem. And so I do, I feel like there is a place for cleanup, obviously. And if people are throwing their yard debris onto the greenway from just cleaning up their backyard and not disposing of it properly, obviously those things can be picked up. But if we're talking about interrupting the natural process of tree fall, then I would want an organization that's better versed in stream upkeep or creek upkeep, and so that what we're doing is not going to cause more damage than the good is doing.
Hazen, does Charlotte Stormwater have any information like that you're aware of? I mean,
I did write down Mecklenburg County Parks and Rec. I mean, it's their greenway. They don't maintain it to the standards we expect, but it is technically their greenway. I think we should involve them. I think what we should do is put together some kind of report, bring it back to the board, something, and then I think we need a clear expectation of what would be cleared out of the way. Is it, I don't know, something within 15 feet of the bank, as long as it doesn't do any kind of ecological damage. So I think we could put something together. I do think I think Earth Day is the perfect day to do this, and then you still need time to organize and get the word out. But I bet we could get a lot of volunteers out there for Earth Day.
The Appearance and Tree Board did it for years. I know Commissioner Urban participated a few times. We were there together, but there was 50, 60, 70 people just from that effort. People brought their whole families out, and so I think we can get a big group of folks. Corey, did you have a comment?
No, well, I'm just going to add, maybe it was after one of the other meetings. We talked about it in our department head meeting, and I did sort of, say I was charged, I agreed to reach out to some of these organizations. I just simply haven't reported some of the info back yet, and I still plan to do that.
So can we have Hazen and Corey staff come back and give us a report on their recommendations or whatever, and then we can vote on it and organize the effort. And
Scott?
Thank you. I just have a couple points. First of all, as far as a volunteer event goes, Charlotte Mecklenburg Stormwater does usually operate an annual cleanup. Now it is, as Commissioner Miller said, more trash related, pulling tires out and just waste like that. And they have canceled that for this year due to COVID. They just don't feel that it's safe to have a large group out. And I would pretty much echo those concerns. In order to have an impact, you need a group of people to come out. And at this point in time, it's not quite safe enough. Maybe in the fall, that type of event could work. And then as far as pulling logs out and things like that, I do think that that's a reasonable request. However, I do, as a couple people mentioned, Mecklenburg County, we do work closely with their Park and Rec department and their maintenance department, and they usually respond pretty quickly to any issues. The bridge outside of Commissioner Miller's house recently had a clog, and so that's where Stormwater did come out and clean that up. And I think if we talk to them about a more proactive plan for cleaning up some of these fallen trees and logs that can cause blockages, I think that they're the appropriate group to work with, and they have the equipment and the staff to do that, as opposed to making that a volunteer event.
Okay, so when do you think, Corey, you could have some information to come back with? A couple weeks, or you need a month, or
maybe give me 3 months. No.
That kind of bypasses Earth Day a little bit.
No, I have some information definitely before the next board meeting to share. Well,
Okay, great. That'll be good.
We'll have a conversation about it.
All right, let's do that. That we'll still have time before Earth Day to come up with something that everybody can agree on. And while we're speaking on the same topic, I don't think a couple of our residents would mind me mentioning by name the St. Martins that live over near Lakeview Circle sent all of us an email regarding litter along Sam Newell Road. And just in general, I've seen a ton more litter. I don't know for what reason, but there just seems to be a lot of trash. And I started thinking, we going back to prevention rather than cure. Why are we picking up other people's trash? We really ought to be going after the people that are putting the trash there in the first place. And I did reach out to Chief Pennington to find out, what our penalties are for people littering. I was over in Charlotte the other week, and somebody threw a ton of garbage outside of a car on Providence Road, just throwing McDonald's bag, garbage, cups, just continued for, a quarter mile throwing garbage down the road. So Chief Pennington, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
Can you go over the text that you sent me? You talked about a class 3 misdemeanor and the state law and all that stuff.
Yeah, so it actually depends on the intent behind the discard, right? So the way that it becomes a class 3 misdemeanor is if there's an intentional littering of under 15 pounds. And that intentional littering is the caveat on whether or not it's a class 3 misdemeanor or it's considered a violation or so let's just get the exact wording here. So it's either an infraction if it's not an intentional. Let's say that you're driving down the road and trash blows out the back of your car. You might get an infraction for that, but an intentional littering is a class 3 misdemeanor. It has a penalty of $250, between $250 and $1,000. But the judge can also require some community service of 8 hours to 24 hours, depending on the violation.
And do your officers have to witness somebody littering to write them a ticket?
Because it's a class 3 misdemeanor in that position, yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of the problem. But Hazen, I believe you said you were going to have CJ contact NCDOT about Sam Newell Road. Is that correct? Because it's getting really bad over there. And I'm still seeing a ton of trash on the exit and entrance ramps to 485. I mean, just unbelievable. It's like, ankle deep in garbage. It's I don't know how all that accumulates there, but I'd like to, I know a lot of our citizens, when they're out walking around town, will take a bag with them and pick up garbage along the Greenway or along anywhere in town. And that's much appreciated if you can do it carefully. There's Sam Newell Road's a little dangerous to be walking alongside with no sidewalk and picking garbage up. But I'm going to try to find the information. I didn't have time before tonight's meeting, but I think there's a number you can call. Hazen, you and I discussed this briefly, where you can report somebody for littering, like the person I saw. You can actually turn their license plate number into the state, and they'll write a letter to whoever owns the vehicle and warn them not to do it. They've been seen littering, but I don't know what it is, but there seems to be more trash around town, mostly on our state maintained roads. And I don't think NCDOT is picking up much trash these days, but I would really like to see more people caught that are causing the problem and fined heavily. Seems like the penalties is already strict enough. It's just we can't catch people doing it. But back to this Earth Day, when Commissioner Urban and I and others went and picked up garbage around town. My son and I picked up like 2 humongous black garbage bags full of garbage from Squirrel Lake Park to Fullwood, just on the side of the road. Just tons of just Gatorade bottles, Pepsi bottles, garbage people are throwing out. So let's clean up. It's starting to be a problem, and it's starting to be really noticeable. So encourage our citizens that care enough to make the effort to pick up the garbage, and let's catch the idiots that are causing the problem if we can. That would be I'd like to see their 8 to 12 hours of community service be pick up garbage in our town. Yes, thank you. Ms. Canapino just sent me a website, SWATA Litterbug at ncdot.gov, SWATA Litterbug. That's where you can report people. So I was unable, unfortunately, to drive safely and catch the license plate number of this person in front of me that was throwing all the garbage out, but got to get a handle on it. And I'm hopefully, Hazen, if you could have CJ also mention along 485, we've brought that up to a couple of our legislators, and like to see that get cleaned up because it's becoming really nasty looking. That's all I have for tonight. I wish I had a happier note to end on, but kind of a venting session about litter and garbage. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the group before we go on to town manager's report?
How about the attorney's report?
I was going to just skip you because I know you don't have one.
No, I don't have a report, but I have an inquiry.
Okay.
Expectation level on the human resource management system. As I understand it from the discussion, is what the board is wanting is either a 1-year contract or a 3-year with a escape clause. Does that kind of summarize what the expectation level is?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted the clarity on it. Thank you. That's my report.
Okay. I did want to go back. I don't know if it's possible to do this. The motion we made for the shred event did not include the rental cost of the Matthews Elementary parking lot.
So that to me, that was implied, Mayor. We are going to fund that through normal operating. Even if you hadn't made a motion and the board wanted to do it, if y'all hadn't voted on it, we would find the money.
Pull that $60 out of your wallet, wouldn't you, Hazel?
Could do that too. Pass the hat.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We're good then. Now, town manager, do you have a report?
No, sir, I do not. Hope everybody has a great evening. It's a good night's sleep.
I think that's kind of a subtle jab in the ribs to adjourn this meeting. So would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion from Commissioner Miller, second from Commissioner Bland. Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes, y'all stay safe. Be blessed.
Yes. Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.